That means we're gonna start right now. All right, welcome to the Village of Cottage Grove Village Board of Trustees meeting on Monday, March 2nd, 2026. This is a virtual meeting, meaning it's taking place in person at Village Hall and also on Zoom with the link at the top of our agenda, and you can watch it live stream or later on our YouTube channel. It's 6:30, so I'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted, so we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, this is the public appearances, public's opportunity to speak. We do have a public hearing regarding the impact fee ordinance, which occurs later on in the agenda. So we will start with anyone in the room that would or has filled out a wish to speak form that has not to do with the impact fees. And then we'll make sure we address anyone on Zoom who would like to address the board as well. So the board did receive communication from Craig Spencer at 111 East School Road with the dissatisfaction with the documents in the agenda for the flock sources and the letters of recommendation. He is asking for oversight and transparency. A monthly or quarterly report from the police should be standard for all inquiries, and this will be addressed later on in the agenda, and we'll have Chief specifically address some of his comments in the email and then also respond to him via email as well. Stephen Wahe, 100 Coyle Parkway. He is a village resident and is against the creation of a debt reduction task force, stating that there's a process already in place, including a bunch of things that the village board goes through throughout the course of the year, and that the village staff who are trained and have years of experience should be guiding the elected board. Lisa Zwartz, 1002 St. John Street, is a village resident. I'm sorry, Lisa, you're on Zoom, correct?
Yes.
Right. She would like to speak.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Is this the portion to speak about the impact fees or the debt reduction task force?
You can save your impact fee comments for the public hearing. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So if I can speak on the debt reduction task force, this is already part of the budget process the village undergoes each year and would be a redundant process, especially considering the task force is not led by experts in municipal finance, rather it would be led by trustees and residents. Municipal finance is very different from personal finances, and budget debt discussions should be led by these experts. But we currently have a higher debt
Great. And then there's one more wish to speak for him, JP Vivincencio, 702 Wheelbridge Road, is a village resident.
Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. I want to speak for the proposal on the debt reduction committee because before we create something new, it's important to acknowledge our current process that we already have in place. The village currently manages the debt through 3 established and reoccurring processes. First is the annual budget process. Each year, the board reviews outstanding obligations, debt service schedules, projected borrowing, levy impacts, and fund balances. This is where we evaluate affordability and timing. Second is the capital prioritization process. Projects are ranked in sequence based on necessity, useful life, infrastructure capacity, financial impact, so that we can avoid sharp spikes in debt or overwhelming the operating budget in a single year. And third, the financial management plan. So Cottage Grove has maintained this plan since 2009 in partnership with Ellers. So each year, staff and Ellers and the village board project 5 years of operating budgets and capital needs, model debt capacity, and present policy options to the board. The financial management plan is not required by statute, yet Cottage Grove does this every year. And that discipline matters. It has contributed to the highest possible management score from S&P, something confirmed from Ellers in a recent village board meeting. That score directly impacts interest rates, which we receive when we issue bonds. In practical terms, it saves taxpayers money. So the core question is simple. What would the debt reduction committee do that these 3 existing processes are not already designed to accomplish? If there's a specific gap, I would think it would be helpful to identify it clearly. But as proposed, this committee appears to duplicate responsibilities already assigned to the board through this budget process, capital improvement plan, and the financial management plan. I would also note that the professionals we retain to evaluate fiscal health have been clear. Ellers has told the village board that we're in stable financial condition. We are currently at 50% of our statutory debt limit, which is well below what Ellers recommends. Creating a separate debt committee risks sending an unintended signal that there is a financial emergency or instability, wherein the data does not support this conclusion. It also risks diverting staff time and board focus from the structured processes that have already earned strong ratings and measurable savings for residents. If there are concerns about specific projects, specific borrowing decisions, specific debt service levels, the budget process is exactly where those discussions belong. That process is public, comprehensive, and designed for the level of scrutiny. For those reasons, I do not believe the additional committee is necessary. Strengthening and utilizing the tools that we already have is the more responsible path. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room that'd like to give public comment? Just state your name and address.
My name's Terry Benzo. I live at 806 Stony Hill Lane. I'd like to say I'm in favor of the debt reduction task force because clearly when you are 30, 40, 50 million in debt, your existing process does not work. I don't know how anybody can make a claim it does. So go for it. I think you need to do this. And as far as the impact fees, when I worked in government for 20 some years, we had impact fees for all different things. And they worked great because it would spread the cost to the new developers or whatever versus the existing people. And it was a lot more fair to them. And but one thing that we did do is we looked at them regular, twice a year for some of them. May seem like overkill, but there's a lot of moving parts to them, and it only took us 15 minutes a meeting to do it. So I'm in favor of that. And then also at some point, and this is getting ahead of things, I'd be looking at nuisance fees are a great tool. So if you've got some, well, let's say an apartment building with several hundred police calls a year, you can maybe try to get a little bit of your money back on the extra burden or other nuisances out there. And I think that's long overdue. Okay, that's it.
Anyone else in the room that'd like to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom? Then we'll move on to discuss and consider the minutes from the village board meeting on February 16th, 2026. Those minutes are linked in the agenda.
I would make the motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second. There's a motion by Murphy, second by Kel Nelson. Any discussion on the meeting minutes?
Yeah, I had one small change. Let's see, where was it? You referred to me as Pete, not Dal, Lisa, so I think just a minor change. I'm trying to see where it was. It was under 10A, motion by Pete to approve. I think we used the last name, so one minor change.
Any other discussion? Heidi, you okay with that change?
Yep.
All right, me too. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. I'm going to ask the board to please consider having the EMS discussion first, because there's a contract the village board has to consider, and chief needs to get over to the town meeting. And then also to move up the Colonial Club, because Melody has come here in person as well, and those items shouldn't take too much of our time, if that's okay with the board. All right, so Pete, I'll turn it over to you for a review of the EMS. And Chief, invite you up to talk about the contract as well.
Okay. Let's see here. So we met, we started, we approved the minutes, January financials, the January bills. There were no hardship requests. Under the chief report, there were a couple items here. Mandy did accept the full-time position of the administrative services manager, so we're moving on there. We did have 2 casual members that resigned, but due to some personal reasons, but we do have a pretty deep bench there, so nothing significantly impacting service. We did have 3 correspondences, one thanking for help with EMS expertise at a town meeting, and then there were 2 for appreciation regarding response and service. We did review the 2026 and to 2035 capital replacement schedule, just sort of getting everybody aligned as we kind of get into the year here. And then we did discuss and consider the Stryker medical service contract for the cot and load system and the stair chair. So Chief, maybe you'll kind of want to walk through the nuts and bolts.
Absolutely. So the district owns 3 ambulances, and inside each of the 3 ambulances is a power load system and a power cot. The cot and the load system are how we load patients that we transport to the hospital into the ambulance. They are roughly combined $70,000 to purchase brand new today. Since we've owned them, we've maintained a pretty comprehensive maintenance and annual preventive care package for them. Because if we'd need to replace any one component, it's a surprise, somewhere around $35,000 purchase that we'd like to avoid, whereas we can pay a little bit of money throughout the course of the year for the maintenance that also covers any potential repair needed to include catastrophic repair. So this, the agreement that's in front of you and to approve is a budgeted expense, but we bring it to you to approve it because of its overall value. Our IGA says that the commission itself can approve a contract up to $15,000, but doesn't specify whether that's $15,000 per year or $15,000 total value. Because of the total value of the contract, it's almost $30,000 total, so about $10,000 per year. This is just for cots and load systems. Our stair chairs don't see quite the amount of abuse that the cots and load systems do, and they're much less expensive. A stair chair, while you'll probably say, well, that's expensive for a chair that has a couple wheels on it, is about $5,000. But it's medical grade equipment that helps us get people up and down stairs easily. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of what the Stryker agreement would be. The one request from the commission was that we reach out to Stryker and see if they would change the court from Michigan, because that's company location, to Wisconsin. And the agreement that you would hopefully approve tonight is listed as Wisconsin for courts if there were ever to be a lawsuit.
Thanks, Chief. I think the total dollar value is there. You can see it. It's a 3-year contract at $9,895 per year, but there is, because we did purchase a new cot and load system last year, there was a credit of $2,700. So the total for year 1 is below budget. It's at $7,100 versus the budget amount of $7,500. So I think all in all, it certainly is the right thing to do for the commission to make sure that we've got equipment that our paramedics and EMTs can manage patients.
Yeah, this maintenance agreement also includes replacement of batteries. So the cot itself is battery operated, so we are able to replace one per year. And because of this agreement, we have a regular rotation where the batteries themselves we only own for 3 total years before we swap it out of cycle. That ensures that it'll function for the time frame that we require it to before it is able to get back and charge itself. The power load portion of the system also has a battery inside of it. The only time that it's attached to vehicle power is when the cot and the load system are both together in its home base, if you will. So the lifting, the hydraulic motor in the load system is battery operated as well. So that's the more expensive of the 2 batteries. If I remember correctly, that one was $1,000 or more, and then the cot batteries are about $800. So it's as part of the deal, we're able to replace those regularly.
This is a discuss and consider.
Questions for Chief? I'll make a motion to approve the contract as proposed.
And I'll second.
All right, motion by Dahl, second by Murphy. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Awesome. Thank you for moving me up, or us up in the agenda. And one thing I forgot to mention, this is also a pretty significant employee retention piece. This has become a standard piece of equipment in the market, and it allows some of our folks that might be a little bit longer in the tooth to stay in the business rather than injuring their back while trying to lift people in awkward positions.
All right, thanks, Chief. All right, we're also then going to move new business letter D up, which is discuss and consider agreement for services with the Colonial Club Incorporated. So there's a memo in the packet and also an updated agreement for services, but which has taken us some time to kind of get through. So we have met several times over the last 6 months or so to kind of talk about improving senior services in Cottage Grove and making sure that we get that information out to seniors. And I think we have a pretty good plan going forward for the next year. And so this, the MOU is just our old MOU, but updated, taking out some of those really kind of numerical deliverables and making them a little bit more realistic. And then we did have a meeting, included the town in there too, to make sure that we can communicate better to our residents. And we have a new webpage that has the Colonial Club information linked to that so that residents can find those types of services. So looking for a approval of this, and then we can expect Melody back at our next meeting to give kind of an updated annual report to us.
Thanks for working on that. It's important to connect seniors in our community with resources that can help them, and the Colonial Club for being there to help those seniors that need a little extra support and activities. I think it really benefits their quality of life here in Cottage Grove. So thanks for your work on this. With that, I would make a motion to approve the agreement for services with the Colonial Club as presented.
I'll second that.
Right, motion by Murphy, second by Dahl. Any other discussion?
Just a quick comment. So this would pull their service. So under our normal service providers, we have them come in August. So this would pull that from that review cycle, put them in the review cycle based off of their presentation, so we don't make them come twice, just to be more effective for everybody.
Okay. Did I say all those in favor? Okay.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, so we're going to hop back up in the agenda and move to presentations to the board. Presentation from Frontier Communications regarding upcoming proposed village-wide fiber optics projects.
I'm going to give a brief introduction here to Philip. This was mentioned at the last village board meeting. We have Frontier here to discuss their plans for a village-wide fiber optic presentation.
Thank you. My name is Philip Wynn. I am the Senior Construction Manager for Frontier. for the state of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and Nebraska. I'm here to just show you a little bit about what what we're bringing to the community here. To start, we are Frontier Fiber Optic, a Verizon company. Sorry. And the reason why I wanted to point that out initially is because we have just been recently purchased by Verizon. And so in the next couple months, you're going to see the transition from the Frontier logo, as well as the Frontier name, into just Verizon with a standard V. So we're excited about that. We hope, and we think the community will be excited about that. So I'm now ready. So the one thing I want to point out is that we are a fiber optic internet company. We do have existing copper plant, which has been around for a while, but we're going to transition all of it over to fiber optic service. The reason why it's a reliable product, it also provides us, our residents, our customers, the ability to have symmetrical speeds. So if you're paying for 500 megabit per second internet service, you're going to get not only 500 megabit per second download, but you're also going to get 500 megabit per second upload. That's important for people that rely on uploading pictures, for instance, to a website so that they can show their customers. It's also important for the kids to be able to play video games. So it does come with superior service, premium 24/7 tech support, as well as many other things, but we'll continue on. This slide is mainly to let you know that it is a very reliable product. You should not have bottlenecking. And what that means is when all of us get off of work and we come home and we start to get on the internet, or, all of a sudden we got multiple neighbors getting on the internet. With some of the older technology, you would see sort of a bottleneck where the speed starts to, cycle and just slow down. We don't have that issue with fiber optic service. And in fact, the equipment that's coming into our central office is so new. There's so much bandwidth. It's going to be quite a while. Even if everybody in the community decides to go with 7 gig service, which is what we offer on the high end, you should not see that issue. And and as far as the discrete in-home equipment, we utilize a product called Eero. You've probably heard of that. It's you can see it on Amazon and other shops. It's a very reliable router that we provide, and it does give the speeds that you should see that you're paying for. One time when I was in one of my friend's home, he was paying for 2 gig service. I was surprised that I was able to get 2 gig service wireless on my cell phone with the Wi-Fi connection that is available. So, next, please. Just to give you an idea of what the pricing is like, the lowest speed we have is 500 megabit per second internet. We're offering it to the residents, and this is nationwide. Any customers that want Frontier internet service for $29.99. I think that's an incredible price. And in addition to that, the promotion that they're having going on right now is the first 3 months is free. In addition to that, if we have residents that qualify for low income, there's an additional $10 off. So we're talking about community members that have the ability to have over 500 internet for just $20 a month. I think that's great. And for those who feel that they need 7 gig download and 7 gig upload, where you have a family of maybe 5 where everybody's playing video games or working with AI technology or something of that nature that requires that much bandwidth, it's available for you. And for $109.99, that's a pretty good price. Why you need 7 gig, I don't know for a resident. But eventually, it's going to be available to all of the businesses as well in this community, which is, I think, going to be very impactful, especially when they have websites that need to be able to have good upload speeds to sell their product. For anyone who needs to have the ability to upload into a web server, or if you were to be, say, GM, where my friend works for Peterbilt, and you have a modeling computer, the ability to access remotely that modeling computer to be able to mimic certain situations for a bumper, per se, is incredible. So, and we plan to even go beyond 7 gig because the higher the speeds we offer, the more we seem to see our customers want even faster speeds. I don't know what they use it for exactly. I just have 500 over 500 where I am, and I think that's more than enough, but it's just me and my wife. This is a slide just to go over the process of what we normally do. You can just go on to the next one. What we're currently doing right now is working with the permitting team to let them know that we're coming into town and we're going to start building. This is good right here. And the process that usually works is we work with the permitting team and see what they want, the city, the township, the village wants us to do, and we try to follow whatever is needed. The way our internet service works, though, is that it starts first at the central office, and then it goes to a distribution hub that is usually at the entrance of a neighborhood. I believe there's going to be 7 to 10 hubs. Yeah, because it's going to be about 7 to 10 neighborhoods that will be getting internet service. I believe it's like 2,499 households here in this community that's going to be able to get the service if they want to. From there, it distributes out to the individual roads, the homes. Usually there is a line lot where we'll have a handhold that's in the ground, or it'll be in the air with the pole, depending on how the existing plant is. If our old existing plant is aerial, it will be aerial. If it's buried, it's going to be buried. And from there, once the resident does want internet, is when we will actually connect from the terminal to the home. So you can move to the next one. We just want to show you what a hub looks like, because I don't want you to be scared. It's not everywhere. It's not going to be in front of your home. It's usually on the corner, on the edge, where our technicians can safely park and get access to it. You'll only see it, like I said, at the entrance of the neighborhood for a particular project, and I believe there's 10 projects, maybe. I think there's 10 hubs. So you can go to the next one. Once we get the hub there, we actually build out to the individual homes. And if you do have existing old Frontier plant that was buried, you probably see those little copper pipes, pedestals. They won't be sticking up out of the ground. Ours will actually be buried flush to the ground, and the lids are usually green to try to minimize the impact on how it looks on the resident's lawn. And they're usually, like I said, on the lot line between two homes for that. And if it's not buried, it will be aerial, and the next picture should show that, where you'll see an aerial terminal. It looks like this small portion right here. There will be anywhere from 4 to 12 ports on that to connect to 4 to 12 residents in the neighborhood. And usually it's just 4 because we don't want too much cables running around everywhere, at most. And then when the customer is ready to have service installed, we will actually get the order set up. We'll send a technician out that will actually walk over with the customer how the process works, where they would like the fiber optic line to either come from the aerial portion to the side of the home, or from the terminal handhold to the home. You may see a temporary line until we get a buried crew to bury that portion to the side of the home. Otherwise, if it's aerial, it'll be a permanent connection. That is a fiber optic terminal, by the way. Yeah, to the right here. What that does is, the reason you're able to have symmetrical speeds of 7 gigs up and down is because it's shooting a laser back to the central office. So there's lasers being shot both directions, and that's how we're able to provide that high speed. We are only limited by the mechanical technology that we can create now, but we can go as fast as the speed of light if the technology allows us to do that. But that's our limitation right now with the technology. Now you can go to the next slide. When our vendor goes out here to start putting in conduit, I don't want to surprise anyone, but you will see areas where they will dig up and put pipe into the ground. This will be what it looks like, but if it does happen, it will be fenced off, and if it's not being worked on, it will be backfilled and covered until it's ready to be worked on again. But usually they want to come in and get out of that neighborhood, because we don't want to disrupt the neighborhood as much any more than we need to. All right, go ahead. So We won't just come in to a neighborhood and blindside your residents. We will actually go out there a couple weeks in advance, anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, depending on when your team can get out there. DeLuca is our vendor, and I have my vendors here too, that's doing the build for me. We'll have A-frames at the entrance of the neighborhood that will let your residents know that we are coming into the neighborhood, and we are going to be putting in fiber optic internet service for them that will be available to them. In addition to that, if you'll go to the next screen, there will actually be door hangers that we'll put on any resident's home where we're actually going to bore underneath their yard so that they know that we are coming in advance. In addition to that, if you look at the door hangers as well as the A-frame, they should have two things on there. They should have a QR code that if they know how to use it to be able to contact us and reach somebody to leave a message, or actually reach somebody that will actually contact one of my team members that's here. Usually the turnaround is usually 24 hours for us to come back when there's and this is for customer complaints. For instance, say, we have a bore rig on their grass and it damages a bush or something like that. The resident wants that bush replaced. They'll call this 800 number. Actually, it's going to be a local number on there and a QR code. And they'll get someone, they'll tell them what's going on, and it comes immediately to my team. My team will actually send someone out there, like I said, within 24 hours, and we usually have that resolved within 24 to 48 hours, depending on the situation. If it's something more, substantive, it could take a little bit longer, but we want to make sure that we address any issue that comes up before it comes to you and to your permitting team. So that's what we do before we start coming into the community. You can go ahead and move on. Yeah, I just put up the map. So even just because we come in and we notify the residents and we give them the ability to have a contact for us, doesn't mean it stops there. After we're done with the build, we will come back in and make sure that whatever we disturb, we restore. So you should see minimum impact. Now, it takes time for grass to grow. And so you may have sod down on the ground. And if it's, I don't think the build's going into the winter months, so we don't have to worry about putting straw and all that stuff in, because everything should be easy to resolve this by the end of summer at the latest. This is kind of a map, an overview of where we're building. That turquoise color is all the areas that we're building in. What is orange is already in place, and it's basically what we call feeder fiber, basically fiber optic fiber that's going from central office to central office. So thought you would like to see where, this is just an overall view. In terms of specifics, what residents can do is click on that QR code where they go to, and it should give them a link to the ability to see when it's coming into their neighborhood, if it's available. In addition to that, it also has a link to what exactly is happening as far as the process. And what I can do also is provide links if you have a website for the village, so that the residents can see the door hanger, as well as having links to the process of how we go about building, and also who to contact if they want service. But I can tell you, the sales team usually, the moment we open it up for sale, the sales team has already been out there letting everybody know that it's probably going to be ready in a couple days or something like that, because they know it immediately. So there are times that you may even see in the post office, there will be a sign that says Frontier's coming. Call this number here and use this promo code. It's usually one of the technicians that want to come out and start selling, because they get credit for selling to the residents here in the community. Does anyone have any questions? I can go over anything.
Questions from the board?
So to comment on this, I've been working with Frontier. I've already met with them. Me and Aaron and my staff already met with them previously before they came here. They have submitted 7 of their 14 permits, if I believe There's 14 of them.
Yes.
And there were some comments that I had for them. A lot of the work thus far that I have seen is in easements, or supposed to be in easements in the back of everyone's houses where existing pedestals are located. The permits will be going through Public Works Commission, and then ultimately will be coming to Village Board given the large project and such a big disturbance. So if there's any concerns or questions that you have, you're welcome to ask them, or you can reach out to me and we can discuss as well.
And assuming we'll put together a project page then, so that if residents do come onto our website, they'll be able to find what's going on.
Absolutely.
I'll send you those links too, because there's 2 links that I think are very important to have. One is how the construction process works, and the other one is how to get service. And I'll also send you basically a copy of the door knockers, the front and the back, in English and in Spanish, so that
Perfect.
you can have it for the community to put on the website if you need to.
Thank you.
Questions or concerns or comments at this time?
I just want to be sure that I understood. So if, let's say a resident does have an issue, they don't feel that their yard was cleaned up like it should be after something was added, is the process then to reach out and contact Public Works or
No,
contact?
please
okay.
contact us.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm proud of, my team in Wisconsin, is we do lead the nation in terms of restoration and making sure any resident concerns are addressed immediately. We have a monthly meeting with a bunch of senior vice presidents that just goes state to state to state to state. You know, why is the residents complaining this much stuff? Because it affects our branding, and the last thing we want is that our branding is affected because we can't take care of the community and be a good partner. So.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. I guess I had a couple questions. So you showed a picture of a hub, and it looked like it was kind of on the property side of the terrace. Are the hubs going to be back along the backs of the lot lines, kind of where the utility boxes are, or
They
it just
should
seemed
be in
odd
the-
it was on the front of the?
They should usually be in the right of way. So for instance, if Spectrum or TDS or Charter, wherever theirs are, we usually will try to keep it together if possible. If it's just us there, we try to stay within the right of way. We stay within the right of way. That's there. And we will, I'm sorry.
Non-negotiable whether they're in the right of way or an easement. They've got to be located,
yeah.
whether in an easement or the right of
I
way
guess
and where
just
the
the one
locations
picture
are.
showed it right by the street. It just looks sort of odd. That one right there.
Yeah, this is a neighborhood in Texas though.
Okay.
So for Texas, the right of way is it's from here to the fence line.
Okay, so
So-
Texas, they put it in the front. These will all be along the back lot lines. Where the-
These hubs will actually be up front, right? And
In the terrace?
not, where would they be?
Because that's where the right of way is. Right?
It'll probably depend on the location of where they're installing. A lot of their infrastructure is being installed in easements
Sorry,
of the
yeah.
7 permits that I've reviewed and looked at. But I do not know the exact location of the hubs, but that's already on my list as I
Okay.
was reviewing to
Yeah.
make sure that I know where those locations are.
Yeah.
But the intent is not to be in the middle of someone's yard.
Right.
Yes.
They would be
So
on,
obviously, we'd
They-
prefer them where charter
Correct.
boxes are, where they're
Yes.
kind of rear lot line, not at street level.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's great.
Yeah, I know, and so I'm coming from Texas here, so this, for me, everything up here is new. But in Garland, Texas, I do know that we keep them in the rear, in the alleyway if possible, or on the side where it's not in front of anybody's yard. Usually, like there's a side street stuff, we try to keep it on or in the alleyway. Here, it might be a little bit different, but Jerry and his team will work to make sure that we make it in a manner that's, we will work with the community. So we haven't had any issues. So I have no problems working with you and doing what we need to do. So,
Kind of knows.
yeah.
Couple other quick questions. So you've got some great education. I think putting on the website is great. How far in advance do you do the door hangers as far as awareness for?
For my
Residents?
understanding, it's anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks in advance.
Okay, so
So yeah, it's not going to be like the day before.
yeah.
Yeah,
So good
because
advance
yeah.
notice. Great,
So,
great.
am I right?
You're right, it just depends on how long it takes the young ladies.
The-
Pretty picky on the permit, on what I want on the plans.
Yeah, the
so.
moment the permits are approved, we're going to be out there putting door hangers on there.
Okay, great.
So.
Two other quick questions. So duration of the install, so you're going to come in, put the hangers up 2 weeks or whatever before. Once you begin, how long does this process take?
Yeah, with a number of projects, let's call it, sorry. So, my name is Jerry McCoy with DeLuca Group. We've been in business 50 years, so been doing this a while. 25 on telecommunications side. We build a lot of fiber plant around the country, and we have an office here. Mario DeLuca is with us, our CEO and president, owner, and he lives here. And we have a couple buildings, one in across the highway here, a couple buildings here. So a lot of our folks are local to the area that'll be building. For each one of the hubs that she was talking about on the print, there is an address where each hub resides, where it's going to sit. So you'll know exactly where those are. And then I forgot the other question.
Approximately how long, from beginning to end?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so 10 projects. We got them slated, to start in April or whenever we start getting permits. Hopefully it's far enough in advance of April, May, June, and probably July, and then we're done. So each project, on average, from an underground construction perspective or aerial perspective, we're probably about 4 weeks for each one. And then we pull the fiber through, splice the fiber, activate this fiber, and turn it back over to Frontier/Verizon for selling. But around 4 weeks-ish. And that includes us doing restoration as we go. One of our companies, DeLuca Companies, is a commercial restoration or landscaping company, right? We do commercial landscaping and commercial snow plowing for the country, or for the community, Wisconsin. Question?
No, one thing I wanted to add is, as we're reviewing the permits, and one comment that I've already had to their team is I would like to see not only they provided us today with the project location of where they're going to be, but how they're planning on kind of phasing that throughout. So this way, not only do I know where we're at in a million different places, but also there's a large burden on our utility staff as well, which we're looking to sub out for them to be able to do that work.
Yeah, because if it's going to go over 3 months, it would be good on our village website to sort of
Yep.
have the neighborhoods and when you could expect this, just so there's transparency and information for everybody.
Yes, sir. And we'll probably be working 1 to 3 projects at a time. So
Yeah,
no more
yeah,
than
understand.
that
Yeah.
as we kind of move through.
But you expect to be done by the end of July?
Yeah, and then we usually start from the central office outwards. But yeah, it's not going to be like down here in the south and then way up there in the north. It's usually together, so that it's not impacting multiple neighborhoods.
I just had one other quick question. So you were purchased by Verizon, which is really kind of fascinating. We do have a Verizon store here in Cottage Grove. So is sales and service going to be supported out of the store here, or is it a different division?
No, it's going to be all together. In fact, one of the things I didn't mention is you will have the ability to bundle your home internet service with your cell phone, so you actually would save more in the process. You can pay your bills at the Verizon store too. If you just want to walk there, customers that want to complain can go there and complain to them as well about anything that they have, But as far as the build is concerned, my goal is to be a good partner, to work with your community, and to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make it seamless if possible.
Great, thanks.
Just one adder. We might damage a bush. We might do that. But we will fix it quickly. So, but some things will happen, right? It's construction. Not a lot, but we do have some things pop every now and then as we're moving through. So just wanted to add that.
Go ahead, Heidi.
But yeah, if there are any complaints, please send them to us. So we want to take care of it so that you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that was exactly going to be my comment there. A number of years ago when I first joined the board, we had another company come in. And, a first impression of a product says a lot. So I really appreciate all of the communication that you're starting off here. And I look forward to having those open lines for our residents that have concerns or, are worried about restoration or how they can contact you. Because, if you're doing the work, it's hard to do like between our staff and your staff. So I think the communication lines between our staff and yours, and then between the residents and, are really important to make this an easy process, and people that, would be interested in getting your product. I think that keeping that communication line open is really important. So thank you.
Absolutely. One of the mandate that my director has put on me since coming up here is that we over communicate, and that we provide a clear means for the community to contact us. And so Kyla you have all of our contacts, right? Mike Nelson has sent it to you, and we can share it with you as well, who you can contact. My number is on there. I have no problems responding back. I may be a little bit busy, but I will respond.
At this point, just go through me.
I did have one other. Do you have additional subcontractors under you, or will everyone that's working report to DeLuca? Because I think that, having that reporting chain, or will there be additional subs that don't necessarily report to you?
Well, all subs report into us, right? So on the splicing side, we use some sub labor to do fiber splicing. We have all our own W-2 crews or employees, but we do from time to time, and we'll probably have a couple different subs here on this project, but we'll also have a supervisor on this project. We'll have a manager on the project, all local, and then the vice president of operations for construction will be housed here as well. So all of those individuals will be on the project as the project's unfolding. We will have some subs. Sometimes some of the aerial guys might be a sub, but some of our W-2 guys will be on the project as well. And all of our supervisors, managers, and vice president will be here.
Sure. Any other questions or comments from board members? Otherwise, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, got it.
All right. All right, we will move on to number 7, public hearing. The public hearing for the impact fee ordinance 04-2026. So it's 7:17, and I'll open the public hearing. I'll invite John up from Ellers to give us an introduction to the presentation for the impact fee study, and then we'll open it up for public comments, and then close the hearing. We can ask clarifying questions to John as he goes through this, and then we'll close the hearing and then have discussion amongst the board.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm John Cameron with Ellers, and I'll give an overview of the impact fee study. If you don't mind going to the next page. So just as a precursor, and I know you've seen this as we were getting engaged to do the law enforcement portion of the impact fee analysis, but just by way of introduction, impact fees statutorily have been in place for many, many years. They generally recognize the impact that both residential and non-residential development have on capital facilities, and are designed to recover the proportionate share of the capital costs that benefit new development within the municipality. If you go to the next page. So I kind of already gave what are impact fees, and in addition to that one-time fee, they are generally payable at the issuance of the building permit. They can and are designed to be specifically used for capital cost recovery. That can also include legal engineering, design, land acquisition, in addition to standard construction expenses. What's shown on the slide are the most common impact fees under state statutes. Actually, I'm sorry, this is all of the potential impact fees under state statutes. There are a number of them. If you sample, and I know you have different municipalities, water and sewer, in my experience, are generally the most prevalent. And then after that, you get into parks, public safety, libraries, et cetera. If you go to the next page. On the flip side, impact fees cannot be used really for anything that's not listed and enumerated in the state statute. It specifically calls out that you cannot use it for city, village, or town hall facilities. You cannot use it for facilities that are owned by a school district, and you cannot use it for vehicles. And I think the downside, or the most common comment that we get with impact fees, is what about fire trucks? Those are obviously large capital apparatus, mobile station, technically considered a vehicle. If you go look at the next page, thank you. You're doing great. The process to perform the impact fee under state statutes is called a public facilities needs assessment. It requires us to take an inventory of existing facilities, identify the new and improved or expanded costs by type. So there's specific calculations for each different impact fee, and then go through a deficiency growth analysis to determine the impact fee share of the facility costs, as well as calculate the effect or calculated effect that impact fees have on housing affordability within the municipality. The study is placed on file for a 20-day period in the office of the clerk, and after that period of time, you've got the public hearing that we're at tonight to consider the ordinance update. If you look at the next page, in terms of just general impact fee information and really where municipalities kind of engage us or others like us in the process, is what types of projects should be included. And our messaging is that you really should be zeroing in on projects that you know are for sure going to happen or have a very high degree of likelihood of happening. And there are a lot of communities over the years, especially in the early 2000s, that put impact fees in place just anticipating continued growth and development. Of course, we went through the Great Recession, and a lot of those projects either got pivoted or did not happen. So kind of the takeaway lessons learned over time is to ensure that you're putting projects in the impact fee study and looking at recovering a portion of those project costs through impact fees or all of those project costs through impact fees for projects that are for sure going to occur. Furthermore, if you do not use impact fees, meaning money in, money out, so spending impact fees collected in any one year by the end of the 8th year. So ensuring that you're sweeping that account, and most municipalities will use them, sweep the account in advance of the project, potentially help reduce the borrowing that might be needed for the project, and then on an annual basis use impact fee revenues to help pay a portion of the principal and interest payments on the debt associated with the project cost. Furthermore, impact fees should be evaluated regularly, really as conditions change. One big one is oftentimes impact fees are put in place in advance of a project. Once the project is concluded, coming back and updating the fee with the actual capital costs is good practice. It's also good practice to update the growth projections. So there's a number of assumptions that go into the study. The biggest one is the amount of growth over a period of time. In this case, we're looking at roughly a 20-year planning horizon for residential and non-residential growth. So as conditions change, as maybe updates get done to the comprehensive plan or conditions change on the ground, it's important to come back and memorialize those in the impact fee analysis. If you look at the next page, just jumping into the fees specifically, first one, law enforcement. The village, as you know, is constructing a 27,500 square foot standalone facility. The law enforcement impact fee examines the growth-related cost and the impact fee recoverable cost for that facility. The current cost, less funds on hand and grants, is $14,663,044. The impact fee identifies 52% of the new facility as recoverable through impact fees. That yields an impact fee per single-family home of $2,158, $1,439 per multifamily unit, 0.087 cents per square foot for office and industrial development, and then $1.08 cents per square foot for commercial development. So one thing to point out and really kind of hammer home is this is the maximum amount that you can justify per the study itself. Municipalities certainly have the flexibility to go below that amount if you so choose to, but the study document shows the maximum amount that you can justify through the needs assessment process.
Hey, John, and then just the intent of the study, if the board goes forward with the law enforcement fee, because this is a project that hasn't actually occurred in its entirety, we'll reevaluate once we have incurred all the costs, adjust the cost, the impact fee for the actual construction costs. Right now, we have some levels of estimates for grants, some level of estimates for contingency that's actually going to be utilized. So that's why this number does not directly tie to that $16.2 million total cost, but our best estimate at what that net is going to be.
Thank you. If you look at the next page, just a precursor on the, on the explanation for the fees. With the law enforcement fee, we're looking at developing standards per square foot of employees and vehicles out through the planning period through 2044, looking at the future current population, and based on those service level standards, identifying and quantifying the amount of square footage that the village should have currently for this facility, and then looking at that as a percentage of what is being constructed to identify the new growth share of the facility cost. So of that 14.6 million, approximately 7.6 million is identifiable through recovery through the law enforcement impact fee if you so choose to implement it. If you go to the next page and look at the water impact fee calculation, there's a number of projects that are included in that impact fee calculation. The largest one is the Well 5 project with an estimated cost of $4.55 million. That cost is 100% attributable to new growth and development based on the utilities master plan that was completed in 2022 by Strand that identifies no current deficiencies in water source facilities. This project is solely needed to serve new development within the village. There's also 3 different oversizing projects that have deficiency percentages of 39%, growth or impact fee recoverable percentages of 61%, with a total impact fee recovery of $306,000 out of an estimated $500,000 of total oversizing expenses. The next page shows the calculation of the water impact fee, which is broken down into 2 components. The impact fee per base residential equivalent unit is $1,422. The impact fee for oversizing is $96 per residential equivalent connection, for a total of $1,518. And that applies to a meter size of 5/8 or 3/4 inch, which is shown on that page, and increases with the size of the meter. So the current impact fee is based on number of REUs. This takes the REU principal, but then applies it towards water meters where 1 REU is equivalent to 1 5/8 or 3/4 inch meter equivalent, and then uses the equivalency ratios within the village's water rate tariff and extrapolates that out for larger meter sizes. And that's very common. The nice thing with that, as opposed to the REU method, is that it's very easy to understand and administer. It's also easy for those who are pulling the permits to be able to know what meter size they're looking at and figure out their costs pretty rapidly.
John, one quick comment here. So by far the most feedback I got from developers on this side was a confusion of lateral size does not fall on this chart. So most laterals going into residential homes is 1 inch. Most meters in almost all of our residential homes, besides 2, is 3/4. So that's where there was some confusion, where people were saying, well, that 2,000 amount was way higher than what they saw in other communities. So just wanted to make sure that, one of the things, if we go forward with the impact fee, is making that abundantly clear in communication material, just so there isn't that confusion when people are questioning or pulling permits.
So on the table, it actually entitles it meter size. So it's meter size, and what you're saying is most residential meters are 3/4.
Yep, most are 5/8 or
Okay, so it has nothing to
3/4.
do with the lateral, and that's where the.
And I think
Okay.
where developers' mind is, a lot of their heads are services. The service that they put in is a 1-inch service. And so it's kind of making sure that we're using the right terms in communication. Thanks, Jen.
Switching gears to the sewer impact fee. The sewer impact fee is broken into 2 different components. There's the Ridge Lift Station and Interceptor project, and then the oversizing component of the East Vilas sewer extension project. The Ridge Lift Station project is recoverable from a specific area within the village, which is shown on the next page. The East Vilas sewer extension project is recoverable from all new development within the village. I'm going to jump to the sewer impact fee calculation piece, which again is broken down into 2 different components. The Ridge Lift Station project has a growth percentage assigned to it at 93%, with an impact fee per residential equivalent unit. Again, think that 5/8, 3/4 inch meter at $2,263. The oversizing component is at $300 per residential equivalent unit. And the recommended fee schedule is shown on the next page here. So in summary, if you look at the recommended impact fees from the study per single-family home, you have law enforcement at $2,158, water at $1,518, and sewer for both components at $2,563 for a total amount, maximum amount chargeable of $6,239. And the final piece is quantifying the effect that the impact fees have on housing affordability, and then we've broken out the additional monthly cost or estimated cost on a mortgage payment between the different impact fees. So we've defined an affordable house at $450,000. Assuming 10% down payment, you can see the amount financed under no impact fees, under the existing impact fees, the water sewer impact fee, and then the proposed. So the law enforcement, the new water, and the new sewer. The estimated impact for that property owner is $41 per month for if you were to adopt all 3 impact fees as proposed. And that breaks down between law enforcement at $14, water at $10, and sanitary sewer at $17. Opposed to the current impact fees for water and sewer, which have a $21 impact to that same property owner. Breaks down to $13 for sewer, $8 for water. And with that, I will turn it back over.
All right, Cameron, do you have anything to add at this point?
Not yet.
Okay. Are there any clarifying questions for the board to John?
Is he going to be able to come up, back up for questions? That's fine.
Okay. All right, so we'll open it up for public comment then. We have a few wish to speak forms that do not wish to speak. So Katrina Floyd, 733 Cresthaven Drive, is a village resident, is concerned about the consideration of the impact fee and how it blames newer residents for services the entire village will use and need, specifically for the law enforcement impact fee. Ben Wheeler Floyd from 733 Cresthaven Drive is a village resident. Does not support another cost being passed on to new homeowners, especially not one that chases away new businesses. We should be planning ahead, not fear-mongering our investments and giving into buyer's remorse. against the law enforcement impact fee. And then Stephen Way, 100 Coyle Parkway, for the impact fees, agrees that the village board ordinance should be updated to reflect the current financial cost extending sewer and water utilities for new development. Does not agree with the new fee to pay for existing services, like building, staffing, et cetera. Impact fees are legitimate. Utilities like water and sewer make a lot of sense and are grounded in measurable capacity expansion. Expanding impact fees into public safety introduces greater subjectivity, legal complexity, and economic risk. Encourages the village trustees to remove the impact fees for law enforcement. And then we do have several wish to speak forums from individuals who are here. So we'll start with Casey Erlinson.
Good evening, trustees. I'm here tonight to speak out against the proposed law enforcement impact fee. This is not an appropriate solution to village debt. It is reckless, divisive, and unsupported by both residents and the data. It is a knee-jerk response when what we need is a measured long-term approach. Impact fees are almost always passed on directly to the potential homeowner or business, often at a rate of 1.2 or 2 times, or in some cases 3 times the fee itself. More importantly, they only pay us back if properties are built in the first place, but adding a law enforcement fee on top of our existing water and sewer fee can more than double what a potential community member was expecting to pay. This makes a new and unmeasurable fee like this an uncertain gamble. We could easily lose more growth and more tax dollars than we might make up with the few properties that decide to weather the burden. Then we not only fail to address the police station debt, we lose out on further tax revenue and business development. And that's a price that we'd be paying for years to come. Impact fees also only affect new construction, a fact that has been touted as making growth pay for growth, but we already do that. Taxes are collected equally, we all pay a fair share, and reap the same benefits. Tipping the scales like this with a cost that only newcomers pay will create a rift that villainizes new residents, renters, and stifles small business. Moreover, there's no real numbers that support this notion that recent growth or apartments are the actual driving force behind the police station project. The need for a new building with vehicle and personnel space was first identified a decade ago, before much of the denser housing was even planned. It was always going to be necessary, and blaming our newest community members is untrue and unfair. It's not being the good neighbors that we want to be. Finally, community voices, as well as expert data, have not supported this measure. I attended both of the earlier public meetings last week, and the resident response was overwhelmingly negative. Our village recognized that this is not the right tool for the job and would do more harm than good. One great point raised was that the impact fees in Cottage Grove have been historically for the water and sewer only, or in other municipalities, some for utilities, which works because these are measurable and quantifiable. Safety or law enforcement fees, however, have no possible metric. There's no value that they can be tied to, which may even subject the village to legal liability if we implement one. That's been raised. Only a few other Wisconsin communities have done a law enforcement or safety impact fee, and so they've only been on the books for 2 or 3 years. There's also uncertainty about how the commercial or industrial square footage has anything to do with law enforcement demand, but that's the way they're proposed to be built. As another actual example, a recent development of single-family homes planned 250 units over 10 years. As proposed, that would only recover $250,000 out of the targeted $7.5 million after 10 years, while sending a decade's worth of other developers looking elsewhere and missing out on untold tax revenue. There's a time and a place for this kind of instrument, but it needs to be stable, evenly applied, and backed by solid evidence. The water and sewer fees raise few objections from homeowners and developers because they meet those terms. This reactionary law enforcement fee does not. We should stay the course with our sensibly managed and asset-backed investment funding rather than roll the dice. Thank you.
JP.
Hello again. Excuse me. I want to start by being clear. I support updating the water and sewer impact fees. Those are tied to measurable infrastructure capacity, wells, pipes, lift stations. That's engineering based. That's defensible. That being said, I have a few questions centered on the law enforcement impact fee, including what is proposed in the trustee memo. First, on structure. The professional study calculated the proportional fees across residential, commercial, and industrial development. Trustee memo before you proposes a flat 1,000 fee applied only to residential units. If the study allocates growth across residential, commercial, and industrial development, but the ordinance charges only residential, are we comfortable placing financial burden of growth disproportionately on residents rather than distributing it across all sectors that contribute to the demand? And if we depart from the proportional framework outlined in the study, does that make the fee more vulnerable to legal challenge under the relationship to growth requirement of the state law? Second, on housing impact. Affordability analysis in the study treats the fee as a simple dollar for dollar addition to the price of a home. But research constantly shows that the impact fees often increase home prices by the gold standard is 1.6, but research has shown that it even goes up to 3 times the fee for higher end units. So my question is, did our affordability analysis account for the multiplier effect? If the real impact on home prices exceeds the face value of the fee, are we understating the effect of housing types that the housing committee is prioritizing? Furthermore, a fee of $1,000 per residential unit is a regressive tax that will have a disproportionate impact on more affordable and senior housing, the very types of housing that the housing committee is prioritizing. Third, on growth and long-term fiscal impact. Impact fees increase the cost of new home and act as a barrier for developers entering the market. When costs rise, development can slow, and in Wisconsin, our levy limit growth is tied directly to net new construction. So here's the key question. If the fee slows growth even modestly, what happens to our levy capacity over time? What is the long-term financial trade-off between the revenue that the fee generates and the potential reduction in the tax-based growth? Because when levy growth slows and we are at capacity, we are left with 3 options: reduce services, defer maintenance, or increase the burden on existing taxpayers. And fourth, on service standards. Since police staffing are policy decisions, not fixed engineering capacity limits like water or sewer, what explicitly adopted service standard is the fee anchored to? And if those assumptions change in the future, what happens to the basis for the fee? And finally, nearly half the project cost is attributed to existing deficiencies for the police department, costs that impact fees cannot legally cover. My concern is if we adopt this fee that disproportionately burdens residents, proportionally understates housing impact, and risks slowing growth, we may weaken the very tax base that helps us fund services sustainably in the long term. Before moving forward, I believe residents deserve clear answers to these questions, and the village board should take a look at the data to make an informed decision. Thank you.
Tim Roll.
Going over some of the numbers here, we figured Joe figured $400,000 for the typical home in Cottage Grove is what he took. If you look at that as an assessment, that number that you get from that is $3,180. The impact is $6,200. So roughly, you're welcoming new people into the village of Cottage Grove by charging them their first 2 years of Village Cottage Grove taxes. Well done. Nice. He talked about a water tower for a new residential development. As a developer, you can come in here and with the village's approval, put in your own private well system at no cost to the municipality. It can be done. It has been done throughout Wisconsin. It happens a lot. This is not a way to welcome new neighbors. If you're charging the impact fee for the police, and I live in that new neighborhood, and policing, I want to see it in my new neighborhood more than older neighborhoods. Why would you want to create that kind of disparity, especially with law enforcement and policing? Why would you want to do that? Impact fees are terrible because they're called impact fees. You're taxing people that aren't even here yet. They're not even members of your community. They're not teachers. They're not law enforcement. They're not volunteer firefighters. They're not shopkeepers. They're not anybody that even lives in your community. You're taxing people before they even build a house in your village. That is unfair. You talk about taxation without representation, that defines it. They haven't even pulled a building permit here yet, and you guys want to have impact fees on them. It's ridiculous. As to whatever supervisor's note, where Joe came up with $1,500 for the impact fee and the 3/4 inch, and I read in the supervisor's note that it's more like $2,200, I don't know where the figure from Joe's note came and the supervisor's note was even higher. That's an interesting question. It increases housing costs, and to put it on somebody's mortgage and to figure it into their mortgage as an impact fee, I think is terrible. I think it's a terrible way to try to get an impact fee. Oh, it's only $41 a month. That is a terrible way to promote an impact fee, and anywhere. Totally against the impact fees. I do have more questions, but there are more people here to speak. Thank you.
Michael Swanson.
Sorry, I gotta move this up. Good evening. My name is Michael Swanson. I'm a resident of the town at 2563 Bass Road, but I'm co-president and co-owner of Atlantis Valley Foods, an independent, locally owned small business, which has been based in the village since 2016. Across 2 business entities, my family has built 3 commercial buildings in Cottage Grove, including the current municipal services building and 2 more in the Commerce Road Industrial Park. We made a conscious decision to base our business in Cottage Grove based on our long relationship with the village and their commitment to continued commercial growth, among other reasons. Cottage Grove has always been an inviting municipality to build new development and has handled this growth rationally and reasonably. We believe the addition of the police impact fee is an imperfect idea and shouldn't be adopted. Any additional fee, especially one that could be as significant for commercial building as the proposed square footage fee would be, would simply serve to dissuade further development and could therefore further impact the potential growth and development for which the new police station is being constructed. Further development that serves to increase this overall tax base would certainly factor to be more beneficial outcome than collecting a fee, short-term fee, which is limited in scope and time. Finally, adding a new fee when all indications are that the village is in a strong financial position sets the tone that the village is not serious about continuing our reasonable growth. Thank you for your consideration and time.
Robert Proctor.
Good evening. It's good to see so many of you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight in the presentation. My name is Robert Proctor. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Realtors Association of South Central Wisconsin and General Counsel for the Wisconsin Builders Association. Understand that paying for things is very difficult. So there's never, ever a super easy answer for all the services you want to provide. What I passed out to you tonight, I'm going to start out a little this one, is to just kind of show the comparison of where you all are at. This was based on a report done by Veerbecker for the Madison Area Builders Association. I didn't want to kill this many trees, so I'm going to give a copy to Matt before I leave, and if anybody wants it, I'm sure he can get you a copy. But the first one I'm looking at is this paper right here, and you'll see this is the one where it shows the different impact fees for different municipalities. And you'll see that Cottage Grove is kind of near the middle and the top right now. But if you include the entire police impact fee as if you're looking to, you're going to move much higher. And one thing I'd like to point out, if you look at which municipalities you want to be grouped with, you look at the Village of Waunakee, the City of Middleton, the City of Sun Prairie, and the City of Verona, is where you see a lot of the single-family owner-occupied growth. And what you also see for those communities is the lowest impact fees. And so one of the problems I have with impact fees is I think they disproportionately hurt single-family ownership products, that they're paid at the time of the building permit. They increase the cost for people who want to buy a house. And I think that they're disproportionate, that it's easier. The one reason you're starting to see so much multifamily in Dane County, because it's simply easier to build. It's easier to get it approved. You buy a smaller lot. You don't have to pay for the road. You don't have to pay for the sewer. You don't have to pay for the water. You don't have to pay for all that infrastructure. You don't have to hold it while you try to sell it over 3, 4, 5 years. And the impact fees just add to that. Where in a multifamily, it's a much easier product to get done. And so what do you start seeing? A disparity of multifamily and single family not coming back. If you look at the report prepared by the Madison Area Builders Association, you'll see that right now, Cottage Grove ranks 11th out of 16 on impact fees, with number 1 being the best. So you're near the bottom. Now that's a middle group in there. You're not far off from the average. But one thing, if you look to the right, you'll see that the Dane County Regional Housing Strategy indicated that Cottage Grove needs to build approximately 83 new units a year, and its annual unit starts were 24 this year. To kind of put where Cottage Grove has been, and I know Aaron knows this number better than me, so he can correct me, but I'm going to be pretty close. Prior to the housing crash in 2008, the 2 years prior to that, Cottage Grove was in the like 60 to 70 housing starts and 100 housing starts. It's never recovered from back then. There was years where almost nothing was built here. 24 housing starts for Cottage Grove prior to that recession is very low. And so when you see 24, that's not a big number. And when you keep increasing the barriers to creating affordable owner-occupied housing, that creates a problem. The 30-year mortgage analysis drives me crazy because by that, when you do that and say you can pay it off over 30 years, like that's how you look at it, that becomes a justification for almost any kind of spending. Cottage Grove had a lot of opposition to the library. The library is cheaper on an annual basis than the $40 a month by the impact fee. And so to pretend that that impact fee is insignificant is not fair. It's a death by 1,000 cuts. That's what happens to single family owner occupied and why you don't see it. It's all of these that accumulate and make the ability for somebody to purchase a house too expensive. And the people purchasing those houses are going to be people from Cottage Grove, Monona, people moving from a teacher who's now renting that wants to buy the house, or the new family, the downsizing senior. Those people, those houses don't exist, and I would like to see more owner occupied. I think raising impact fees sends the opposite message than trying to create that type of housing. But I do understand that it's easier on my side of the table than your side of the table. So I appreciate the time and happy to answer any questions, but thank you.
All right, is there anyone else in the room that would like to give public comment during the public hearing?
I just want to make a quick comment. On the presentation, there was a decimal place error for the, instead of being 8 cents, it should have been 87 cents. So that, just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
And then is there anyone on Zoom that'd like to give public comment? You can raise your hand using the reaction button.
If there's nobody online, I'd like to go over the public input session, just general summary, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So really well received. Our goal here at the village is to always make providing feedback as easy as possible. So a couple things we learned during the budget process last year was people like filling out online forms, and people like having an option during the day to provide feedback just in case, even if they can come over their lunch hour and provide feedback. So while we didn't have 100 plus people on the online session, we did have better attendance than prior kind of input sessions. So just in general, a general sentiment was just making sure that we're trying to stay consistent with other municipalities in the Dane County area, to try to look at things also holistically. So if we make an adjustment to these impact fees, is there give or take in other fee structures that could possibly be revisited? A lot of concern, on the square footage related to commercial and industrial, and trying to make a connection between the how does square foot translate to police services. So we had a fair amount of questions there, but I did include in the packet a summary, kind of all the feedback that was provided. So not only was there the impact fee input sessions, Utility Commission was asked to provide some feedback on the impact fees. I had asked them specifically to just focus on the water and sewer fees. That's included. The input session is, and then there was some board member questions that I included in the packet. And happy to continue to additional feedback on how we could reach residents to make sure we're getting feedback for these kind of items.
All right, is there anything else for the public hearing portion? All right, otherwise I'll close the public hearing and we can open it up to board discussion for the consideration of the water and sewer and the law enforcement impact fee for ordinance 04/2026.
I'd like to start the reading that I've done. I would like to see the water and sewer be one consideration and the police station be another consideration for impact fee rather than grouping them all together.
We do have the discuss and consider separated out. Do you want to start with water and sewer first?
So yes.
Okay.
So I have, based on my reading from the UW Extension Office, it's estimated that about 10 to 15% of Wisconsin municipalities with a population similar to Cottage Grove use impact fees for law enforcement. So I know we just talked about water, but so we'll reverse that thought. Go through my notes here. So research also indicates that impact fees do increase the cost of homes, but the effect on driving people away is complicated by capitalization. Meaning further is that there's a study, notably by the National Association of Home Builders, show that for every $1,000 in impact fees, the final price of a new home rises by about $1,200. So there's another new view theory where economists at the Florida State and other institutions have found that while impact fees may raise prices, they often reduce property taxes for that home. Homeowners are sometimes more willing to pay a higher price up front because there is going to be an additional need for services, including EMS, law enforcement. Really, impact fees should be considered the grease for growth because new development is a call for services, and by having these impact fees up front is going to save the taxpayer money in the long run.
Yeah, I think our water and sewer impact fees have been in existence since the early 90s. This is a necessary update in order for growth to pay for growth for infrastructure purposes. So I'm definitely in favor of moving forward with water and sewer impact fees. Chris, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something with Karen. So with that $41, that includes removing and reinstating the water and sewer. So
Correct. And just as a reminder, that would only be, it would be a net increase on the west side of the village. On the east side of the village, the impact fee would reduce to only $300. So then you're actually seeing a decrease in the impact fee for sewer.
Okay, so.
And we did not, sorry, we didn't calculate what that number is. Right. And again, I guess part of the frustration with the statute, we have to calculate affordability. There's a million different ways to calculate affordability, but we have to go through the action. This is by no means to justify the fee. It's to just try to illustrate what is the possible impact on of the fee. So obviously everybody has different, when they qualify for a loan, that everybody has different interest rates. So it's going to impact people differently depending on your situation. There's multiple situations here in the village now where there's half of the village on the sewer side is going to be charged one impact fee because the infrastructure is directly tied to the infrastructure that's serving that watershed. And so again, we try to do our best to illustrate what this can be in that affordability analysis, but there's no not rhyme or reason. So we're always welcoming feedback on how to present things in a way that is understandable and transparent.
Okay, so say at its most expensive, it's an additional $6 a month, and that would pay for 100% of well 5, 93% of the Ridge lift station, and 100% of the Wild Sewer extension?
Yep, oversizing. Yep, and really, if we kind of back up to Ridge Lift Station, so 7% that's calculated as the current share would actually be what Trillium Lift Station is currently serving. So we are not able to recover 100% of the cost because 7% of the capacity of the new lift station is serving existing users. So if it was covering all new users, we would try to calculate the fee to recover 100% of the fee.
Okay, and this might be out of scope for this discussion, but do you know, just you or anybody else there, is that 7% plan to be recovered by any developer around that area?
So the 7% would be, so the way that we recapture rates on the utility side, so the 7% of that infrastructure would be recovered, and John's an expert in this, so he's in the room, primarily through the fixed portion of the utility fees when we look at the rate structure. So just like if we were going in and replacing a water or sewer main, all of that gets layered into the fixed and variable portion of the utility bill every time we do a rate case study. So to answer your question, no, a developer would not be paying the 7%. The 7% would be shouldered on the existing users because it's serving existing ratepayers.
Okay. So now let's be train of thought.
Sorry.
What's going
Okay, I guess that's all I have for you.
That's very dramatic.
I have a question for Karen, since we're focusing on sewer right now. So in the 2025 financial management plan that Ellers had put together, the Ridge Lift Station was listed as being in 2030, 2031 with revenue bonds, and then in 2026, and in our current financial management plan, Ridge Lift Station says developer paid.
Yep.
So
developer paid or impact. It's essentially the cost of development will primarily fall on impact. So the primary area where that's serving, if we shift let's say that for some reason we need that lift station early, we would more likely than not require a developer to kickstart or promise so many homes so we don't have to take out as large of a debt for that project. And I guess part of the financial planning is we do these processes and things change. So for example, a development either kicks back or no longer proceeds to move forward. So we're always on the financial management plan and other documents using the best information that we have available. So when we were looking at the impact fees for that specific infrastructure, it ended up, in our opinion, being the most equitable way to recover that cost of that asset using all the service area that would be eventually recovered for that area.
So that makes sense. I feel like I'm getting an echo.
Oh, sorry.
No, I don't know. So that makes sense, but I guess my question is, like, we haven't, at least since Renee and I joined the board last April, we haven't had any conversations about the Ridge lift station and any of that detail. You know, I know that the board prior kind of put the brakes on it for a little bit, needing to solve for a second outlet of that neighborhood. And so I guess I was just a little surprised to see it in the packet since we haven't discussed it. And so I guess my question to you is, what those things are grouped together for the fees. So if we take Ridge Lift Station out of the potential sewer impact fee increase, what dollar amount are we looking at?
You're looking at $300 for a 5/8 and 3/4. So I guess I do want to kind of, let's take a step back. So the Utility Commission manages the water and sewer operations. So what was brought forward to the village board was a site plan. So the site plan has not came back to the village board because that project is not anticipated to start till 2030 or 2031. So when that happens, the Utility Commission will resubmit an application for a site plan as we get a little bit closer to that date. The kind of trigger factor in is the Trillium lift station is in an area that cannot be improved. So we're not going to be able to retire and bring that lift station up to the standard that it needs to be. So that is why the Utility Commission identified this location for the future site to replace Trillium. So I know there was a long time, there was talks about the only reason why this lift station is happening is because of a specific development. It kind of is dual fold. Some of it is related to if that develops at that frequency, we have to push it up in our schedule, but it has always kind of been in the plan to be an asset that is added. I don't know the specific street, but in 2018, we put in piping to kind of prepare for the connection to that lift station to kind of connect that neighborhood.
So currently there's a 18-inch force main that exists along Progress Drive. If you ever go and see the little like goosenecks that are along Progress Drive, those are air release valves for a force main that currently has no flow in it. That force main was installed in 2018 for the intent of this Ridge Lift Station project. The Trillium lift station that exists across the street from Houston Park, you'd probably have no idea it's there if you walk over there because it's this small little hole in the ground. It has been there for almost 30 years. We're about hitting its lifespan and going to have to put in $500,000, if not more, to that lift station to upgrade it for capacity and where it needs. And that doesn't include the fact that it needs a generator. We have generators at all of our lift stations, all of our wells. In case power goes out, we're able to not flood that entire neighborhood's backyard. So with the Ridge Lift Station, the entire neighborhood of the Arrowwood Hills would flow to the Ridge Lift Station and allow for the village to continue to grow to the east side. Right now, the village cannot grow to the east side and service using sanitary sewer without a lift station. We typically do not want lift station to lift station to lift station because the more mechanical parts you add, the more chance for failures. So in this case, we would redirect flow from the Trillium lift station to the Ridge Lift Station. And then from there, the Ridge Lift Station pumps directly to Vilas Lift Station. Whereas right now, Trillium pumps to our South Main station, and then from South Main, it pumps to our Vilas Lift Station. So you've already double pumping there. That's long story short. I can go into way more technical details if you're interested.
Well, I mean, I think it's important because, you know, if we're talking about a 7% deficiency, right, as part of the Ridge Lift Station being, you know, 7% of the cost is because we have to obviously do something to replace the deficiency. And so I guess my point is we really haven't had these conversations as this board sitting here today. So if this is an impact fee for a project that's in 2030 or 2031, why do we have to resolve it or vote on that impact fee now?
So if the intent is to recover the fee before you build it, you'd want to recover the fee through development as it happens, as opposed to taking out debt and then trying to recover remaining development in that area. So you just reduce the amount of recoverability in that area. I guess from a project perspective, this has kind of been talked up at the Utility Commission quite a bit. So it's just one of those things that's just what that commission has tasked to discuss, and more than happy to bring any updates to the board on that project. But
And I get the recoverability and such. I guess my point is I feel like we have like a couple of dominoes that need to fall in place. We're talking about development in that area, right? To start collecting these impact fees to be put for the Ridge Lift Station. And yet we still have traffic issues and different things in that area that we need to solve for. So I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse in this scenario. So I personally would like to see that taken out of there and just vote on the project that we have going now, whatever the current rate increases that were recommended, and pull that piece out.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
There's a developer looking to come and give a concept presentation for 162 single-family homes in the Ridge Road area on next Wednesday, which would trigger the need for this lift station.
Yeah, and I guess from a timing perspective, the clock doesn't start till we actually collect the fee. So if we establish a fee and we don't collect the Ridge Lift Station portion of the fee for 2 years, it doesn't hurt us because we haven't, that 8-year timer doesn't start. Where I'm coming from on my side is I want to make sure that we can recover as much cost as possible, because obviously once those building permits and things start getting pulled, that's less that we can collect through impact fees and more that have to come and we have to put on the user fees. So that's where I'm coming on my side. I'm trying to expand as long as possible the horizon, which was a big reason on why Well 5 and Ridge Lift Station were the two primary assets that were modeled for these fees.
So the Ridge Lift Station, the 20, or the impact fee, you said that can only be charged on the east side? So is there
only the service area? Yep, so that's the east side.
That's it. So any development elsewhere in the village?
On the east side does not. It just has the flat 300.
So the west side of the village, the blue and the orange, is the only spot where this fee would
Yep, the
apply.
2,263 for 5/8 and 3/4.
Okay, it's not super clear in the packet, but I guess the other question I had was, the existing sewer fee, for example, was $2,055. Have we recovered everything that was identified when that impact fee was in place? Or is there still remaining that rolls over?
Nope, so we will, so regardless of the action taken tonight, with the completion of the SCADA project, I'm recommending that, or I can no longer, as of April 1st, continue to collect water or sewer impact fees. We've recovered all the costs that were identified in the plan. So it's either zero or anything that's in this plan.
So when I look at the summary sheet that you put together, so for developments not in this area, it would only be $300.
Correct. And that, yep.
So it drops significantly.
It drops significantly.
Okay, gotcha.
And part of that, a big part of the old impact fee was Vilas, the large Vilas lift station that had to be constructed to pump things to MMSD. So it makes sense that it drops because it was a larger regional lift station.
Chris, you have your hand up.
Yes. So I'm just looking through the costs of these 3 projects for water and sewer: Well 5, Ridge Lift, and Violet Sewer. Well 5 is $4.55 million. Ridge Lift is 7.2, so 93% of that is $6.7 million. And then the oversizing is $150,000. So basically what we're saying here is if we add $6 a month in impact fees at the most expensive, we can save $11.4 million in future debt. Is that accurate?
I don't like answering in absolutes, but yes, it would reduce the future borrowing.
Okay, thank you.
So like Chris, there could be a situation where like Well 5, we would collect half of the recoverable cost, take out debt for the rest, but have the repayment for the revenue bonds or revenue geo debt be tied to the collection of the fees. So I don't want to say, so yes, the intent would be either to reduce the amount that we borrow or reduce future debt service depending on when those projects trigger.
Rick, did you want to say something?
I think we've covered it at this point, but I just wanted to sort of reiterate that right now the village charges a general, I guess, sewer water impact fee that's anywhere in the village. So we're changing that approach and going to a more regional, obviously. So I think Cameron and Pete got there.
Yeah, more aligned with kind of best practice too, and that was really why we went to the meter approach as opposed to the prior kind of conversion. It's more consistent with what we see across other municipalities.
So just a quick follow-up. So is the clock running on this? Or like, could we look at, as Matt mentioned, the developer who's coming in to do a presentation and kind of wait to see, like, I know you said something about April 1st or.
So basically, to answer your question, I have to retire the existing fees because we've recovered our costs. So there could be a period of time where we're not collecting any fees for impact for permits that are pulled. So obviously, if the board's comfortable with that, we can go with that approach.
The other thing to consider is once someone applies for any development, whatever the impact fees are is what they'll pay. So if there's none, they won't pay anything.
When you say developer, so
Anybody that applies for development.
for a building permit, not a development.
No.
So the state law is basically, once somebody submits a complete application for an approval and they identify the full project scope of it, development regulations applicable to that are frozen. So it's not just any building permit or zoning. It's arguably included in there is the impact fees.
So if it's a phased neighborhood, the entire acreage is going to be impacted or not if it's not in place. So if it's not in place, you're saying that entire development, no matter where it is in the planning process and the phasing process, would be exempt.
There's an argument for that, yes.
So it's within our best interest to work this out if there's potential at the next meeting.
It might have been nice to have this conversation earlier because now I kind of feel like we're being held hostage. And I don't like that feeling. Like, why didn't we discuss this, like when we started talking about impact fees last year about Ridge Lift Station and such? Because the September document said developer paid. There was no clarification, and now our feet to the fire because somebody's coming next week. Like, that feels kind of underhanded, honestly.
Yeah, so those are utility conversations that has been had. So again, we're always happy to go into more details on things that are presented at Utility Commission, but yeah, no, by no means was it intended to make anybody feel hostage here.
So kind of on that same line, in the ordinance talking about reduction of impact fees and that they shall be reduced to the extent required by Wisconsin statutes. So that allows, like if the lift station were developer paid, with the exception of the 7% of the capacity for existing users, I mean, if it's developer paid, then we give them credit for the sewer impact fee because they paid the cost of that improvement, or like how does that work?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure, sorry, Rick. So if the developer is paying for the lift station because their development is, kicking this off earlier, then we reduce the impact fees for those units because they paid for the lift station?
Yes, that's generally correct. So basically the impact fee statute says if we require them to make any sort of payments of those facilities, we have to, that cost offsets any applicable impact fees they would have.
So if we didn't have the impact fee, can we still require them to make that improvement because their development needs that improvement?
We could. There's a different question about to the extent how big we could make them build the lift station. So we could ask them to build a lift station to service their development because that's a public improvement actually needed. Our ability to require a larger lift station that would be on a more regional scale, that would not be something you would typically ask of a developer unless there's TIF funding involved.
Sure, but we could pay for the oversizing of it, like we're talking about the upsizing of Parkview. But then that would fall on all ratepayers and not be recovered through impact fees unless we implemented the impact fee then before the next proposal.
Correct. Yeah, then there's just coordination issues with getting payments and, trying to make sure that we've got the lift station we want, built to the size and capacity we want, and how we recover those costs from the developer. But generally, we would just have to agree with the developer on what that would look like.
But we could potentially fall into then, this developer only builds this big for that development, and then this one builds only as big as they need for their development. Then we have all this infrastructure that we have to maintain and more room for error, where having like a bigger facility is like.
Yeah, it would be more or
better
less
for
like a
the
lift station
system.
per neighborhood.
Yeah.
Depending on what's needed or what could be served by gravity.
The more infrastructure that you have that you can consolidate to a regional station, the better off we are as a community, not only for the service to our residents, but just with our staff as well.
If I could just add to that, I mean, that in a nutshell defines or quantifies the need for an impact fee. So the municipality is taking on and doing responsible growth planning, taking on the asset addition, doing the project, and then recovering the growth-related share through the impact fee analysis, instead of requiring developer A to build just their portion of it, developer B, then we're going to come back and re-oversize the lift station a few years down the road, and et cetera, et cetera. So it allows for proper planning from an infrastructure development standpoint.
So the 8-year time horizon, so the Ridge Lift Station impact fee only impacts the eastern development that's along the interceptor, right? Right now, it's 2026. We're saying we're targeting to build it in 2031. That's 5 years. So if there's any delays, there could potentially be a point in time where we hit that 8-year mark and we have to refund money, right?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. But does that apply, the 8-year window apply to when the payment was made? So meaning,
it does.
If we go forward with this and we don't collect anything for 3 years because there's no activity, the first impact fee on any permit would be, say, 3 years from now. That's when the 8-year clock starts?
Correct.
Okay. And then we just need to spend it all by the 20th year from that initial payment?
No. You really just need to ensure that impact fees collected in any 1 year are spent by the 8th year. You're really looking at identifying, like you're doing right now, collecting up to the maximum dollar amount that's in the impact fee study. So these are the facilities we're recovering impact fees for. These are the percentages that we're doing it. Until we recover the dollar amount associated with the percentage, we're going to continue to collect those impact fees.
But that 8-year clock starts when the payment is made. So
Yep, it keeps
payments
starting
will be
over.
made over a certain period of time, so it's going to vary.
You've got to be able to demonstrate that you've spent the money collected in any 1 year by the end of the 8th year.
Yeah, it's a first in, first out. So yeah, we have a pretty robust system of tracking. A lot of the times leading up to these major facilities, there's some significant engineering, site acquisition, other type of planning. So if we feel like we're getting close to that time frame, that's when we would start incurring the costs that are required before having to refund those costs.
I had another question about the Ridge Lift Station, since, this group of trustees hasn't talked about it as much as, I've heard some about it for a while, as I used to sit on Utility Commission. So it's not just that neighborhood that was being proposed down Ridge Road that would be the driver for that need? It's this whole eastern portion. I'm pretty sure I know that, but, just to talk about that for, anyone listening also, it's all of the red area and all of the blue area that would send
Correct.
to
Yep.
the
That
Ridge Lift
entire
Station.
yellow line that you see in the presentation, that is the interceptor, and that is what will feed the lift station. So anything that can be fed to that yellow line will then ultimately end up at the Ridge Lift Station.
So like Lindstrom Acres, for example, or the Lakewood / Lennar, the current developer that's looking at the Ridge area. So there's 2 active-ish developers.
All right, any other comments on water and sewer?
So just so I kind of reset myself here. So the Ridge lift station is, the recoverable amount is 6.7 million, right? And if we're going to have an impact fee of $2,263, that would represent 2,964 residential homes or living units? Seems like a lot.
You're looking at 3,187 total residential units of capacity.
So the 6,707 divided by the impact of 20. So you're blending the different meter sizes for different. I couldn't connect myself to the 3187.
So the 3187 is the total residential equivalent units of capacity in that lift station.
Okay, now I got you. So this area has been estimated to have 2,964 lots.
In theory, that's possible, but you never know what the density is going to.
Okay, it's just it's a preliminary estimate. Okay.
Right. But you could also have one large user come in with a large meter size and eat up many residential equivalents of capacity.
I guess to some of the comments we heard earlier, and I'll talk about this again later, like this additional cost on homeowners is, when I built my house here, my builder was quite frankly floored at, the expense of the impact fees. So, and, it did get passed on to the homeowner. However, if we're requiring developers to build individual lift stations, that cost gets passed on to homeowners in a different way. So, if we're requiring that the infrastructure be built, it's just that we're, like John said earlier, we're coordinating it to be in a smart way with infrastructure that works best for our staff in the most efficient way possible. So just bringing those fees together to make our infrastructure, the most sustainable, resilient, less room for error. So I think, I appreciate the planning ahead and looking ahead for what these infrastructure needs would be.
All right, final comments on water and sewer impact fees. Otherwise, entertain a motion on the water and sewer.
Point of information, we have one ordinance to decide on. Why are we segregating these two things out? I thought this was done as a package.
Yeah, so the impact fees are brought together, so the ordinance is one ordinance. It's kind of up to the board, I guess, how they want to proceed here. We could make a motion on each of the sewer and water and the law enforcement. It's easy to separate them out from the ordinance, or I guess if you choose not to impose any impact fees. So it's not really a great process for how we do this as far as having this single ordinance, but that was the direction to the board of, bring it all forward together. So we can have a motion to say, yes, impose the sewer and water impact fees, and then law enforcement, a vote on that to impose it, or postpone discussion on any one of the impact fees. So there's not really a set process for how to do it, but if there's, I guess, consensus on the best way to move forward, it's really up to the board.
Well, can we at least have a conversation about the law enforcement impact fee? I mean, we're treating these like two different silos, and they obviously play off each other in terms of what the final fees are going to be.
If the majority of the board wants to have a discussion, we can move on to the law enforcement impact fee.
I just had one comment on the ordinance language, Rick. Under 198-10, it talks about the sanitary sewer system facility impact fees. But under 2, it just says it'll be for the areas identified in the public. It doesn't reference. There's no clarity of area that's impacted within the document.
Right, so we reference the study as the way of identifying the areas. So we're required to keep the study that Ellers performed, like that has to be available for inspection. So that's, the reference to the study is the areas that are identified in the actual study. And we discuss it internally about, do we want to include the map in the ordinance? And we felt it just made the most sense to just reference the study itself for the areas.
Similar to like a traffic map, it's easier to not have to update the ordinance every time and save some money and just have a document online.
Yeah, understand. It's just in that section, it's not super clear, but, you know, at the preface, public facilities needs assessment, I see that. But in that subchapter where it's got the actual costs, it's not super clear. So that's fine. As long as you're comfortable, that's fine.
All right, we can have a discussion on the law enforcement impact fee.
Can I ask Ellers some questions? So obviously you heard some of the resident testimony tonight, and there are some residents that are questioning if it's legal to do this. I think they're questioning the verifiability of the public needs assessment you did, and also whether or not this is measurable. So can you speak a little bit to that, to your process with the assessment that you did, this whole process that you've taken part in?
Sure. So from a public facilities needs assessment and the process that's specified in the statute, it really, the statute is silent on how the impact fees are to be calculated for each type of facility, other than to say you've got to use identifiable service level standards. So in the case of law enforcement, we're looking at existing staffing and law enforcement service level standards of number of staff members per 1,000 residents, and then extrapolating that out through 2045. We're then able to look at the size of the new facility, and based on the estimated staff level as well as vehicle level, which as part of that was vetted with the department. Service level standard in terms of number of square foot for per staff member on the law enforcement side, and then number of square foot for vehicle per vehicle on the vehicle side. Then able to take those service level standards and apply it to the existing population to quantify how much square footage the village should have currently for law enforcement facilities, and then apply that against what is being built to identify the growth share of the facility. So that's the process by which the impact fees were calculated. Or at least identified in terms of the growth share of the facility.
And so you have a tremendous amount of data that went into this, correct?
There's a tremendous amount of analysis that went into this, sure.
Thank you. And in terms of, and maybe this is more for Rick, both in the resident comments and here tonight, there seems to be this question or assertion that a law enforcement impact fee might face legal challenges. Can you talk as to that, please?
So the statute specifically calls out law enforcement facilities under impact fees. So our ability to impose an impact fee for law enforcement facilities is clear in statute. I could maybe see some communities getting in trouble with if they're tying it to like the actual service provision, because we can't be using it for service. It's just the capital facility. So how you calculate it out, like I have full faith in Ellers' analysis. It's not what I'm paid to do. But as far as like our legal authority to impose it, if it's just tied to the actual facility itself, that's a clear statutory authorization.
Thank you for that clarification. So our two experts are saying that they've done the work, it's measurable, there's data, it's defendable, it's within state statute, correct? Okay, thank you. So I guess just a couple things, well, more than a couple things, and there may be a question or two wrapped in here, so stick with me. There were a lot of comments made from the members of the Paula Severson fan club at the beginning of the meeting, so I want to make sure I address all these questions and such. And, you know, there were questions about, let me just go back because I wrote them down. let's see. Obviously, the measurability. I do want to make one clarification. A resident asked about the fact that I didn't have a commercial amount in my trustee memo, and that was an oversight. I did intend to have that in there, that I was going to recommend Eller's recommendations. I was 3 days post-op from surgery, so I made a slight error. So I'm saying that verbally now. So those were some of the things that were brought up. And, you know, what I'm looking at and why I suggested this is obviously there are numbers that we can point to. That was another resident comment about not having the numbers. And those numbers are measured in, for instance, the population growth between 20 and 2026, the increase in debt, which we'll get to the debt task force later, the police department budget alone from 2020 went from 1.5 million to 2.9 million in 2026. Chief, can you tell me what the calls were at the end of 2020 versus end of 2025?
So total calls for service 2020 was 10,283. Total calls for service for 2025 was 16,958.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So obviously there are numbers that support this and that show that the growth in population has had an increase in call volume in the cost of our police services. We've added more officers. Obviously, Eller's outlined future growth and having more officers as well in 2045. So I suggest this because if we look at the total cost of the police station as it is, let's just take a round number of $14 million. Right now, the debt load or the debt responsibility per man, woman, and child in this village is $1,500 each. So $1,500 each for our population of $9,400. In my memo, I suggested a flat fee for residential of $1,000. So when I think about this, and I think as an existing taxpayer who's lived here for well over 20 years, and the fact that I've obviously paid for the cost of police operating, and now I'm paying for the cost of this police station, my debt load is $1,500, and we're asking a new household coming in to potentially pay over $2,000, which is what our expert Ellers recommended. I thought a compromise solution that would get us close to our regional partners was $1,000. That's why I suggested it. Now, some people might say that's not smart. You should have started and held the line at $2,000 and then came down. But instead of that, in good faith, I put $1,000 out there to begin with, because I think that's reasonable for a household. And again, if we're looking at $14 a month, I don't think that's a huge barrier when you put in park fees and permits and sewer and all the other things as well. I guess I would just say, and we didn't even group that in Eller's report, the planning, the engineering, the 1 million plus, right? Like we didn't include that.
In terms of into the total project cost, it's based on the 14.6 million.
So just the construction, right? So I guess where I get a little frustrated, and particularly when I hear residents speak about, and members of this board, since I got on 11 months ago, trust the experts, follow the data. I have heard that so many times, it's like, drilled in my head. And so now we have our expert, who a resident called an expert when they talked about debt, but now we're questioning the expert and the data that they're providing us. So I'm just gonna call out the hypocrisy right off the bat. If we don't approve this, basically we're not saying, trust the experts and follow the data. We're saying screw the existing taxpayers. Let them share the whole burden, just like they have been over the last 6 years. The people of this community have not just not just police, the EMS budget went up a ton, all budgets. And it's due to the resident growth. Now, I don't know how to say it any other way than that. And we have an opportunity to not only make an impact in our possible debt load, but we have an opportunity to say to our existing taxpayers, we hear you, and not just the 8 to 10 people that come and speak at every meeting, but the people who are struggling to pay their property tax bills, and tell us when I'm in Piggly Wiggly, why do you keep raising my taxes? What am I getting for this? Why are all these apartments coming here? We have the ability to say, at least we did something to help pay for the growth. Growth should pay for growth. And $1,000 for a household, I don't see that being a huge issue. And I think we need to do it. I think we need to tell our existing taxpayers they're important. You're not less important than people that don't even live here yet. And that's the message that this board has sent them for years. So I know I'm a little cranky about it, but I'm passionate about it. And the public comments that have come out against this, I'm half tempted to just have somebody else start coming up with ideas and putting to the board, because apparently any idea that I put forth, the whole public's going to just rally against. I shouldn't say whole public, the 10 people. But this is something that we can do that is going to actually make a difference. So I say we move ahead with it.
Just for the record, Paula, in your recommendation, you did say, and approve Eller's recommendations for industrial and commercial. So post op.
Did I? Oh, thank you for rereading that.
You did.
I thought I did, but I was fuzzy. So
I would say none of us want to add fees to builders to add to the cost of construction. We don't want to disincent growth, but there are real costs. The police station itself, if we didn't have growth, would only cost taxpayers $7 million. But we're building it for the next 20 years. So we're building a $14 million police station. And it does seem unfair to bear that cost amongst existing taxpayers, the full cost of all that growth. And I made notes as well in terms of the needs assessment, and it's quantifiable. I mean, we've got ratios of staff to population. We've got that linkage of the staff to the square footage, which drives the size of the facility that we are in the process of building. So I agree with you, Paul. I mean, I think the recommendation you have, I think, is directionally where we need to go. I think when I look at the comparisons amongst neighboring communities, we certainly don't want to be on the high end. We want to be competitive. But at the end of the day, other facility or other communities do have fees, and I think, like you had said, Paula, half the cost is at least some recovery of that $7 million versus putting it on the backs of all the existing taxpayers. So I agree with you, Paula. I think my question would be, to you, John, if we went to a smaller amount, does it have to be prorated? I mean, Paula had suggested 1,000, which is a little less than half, but you've got residential, and then you've got multifamily, and the numbers are different. Is there a way to simplify that? Because you said this is the most we can charge, so we can reduce it?
You can, and that's just like taking up the concept of the impact fee itself. It's a policy question that you have to consider. Just realize that by lowering the amount, you're obviously going to collect less than what is shown in the public facilities needs assessment. So I think part of what you're asking too is a legal question and I would suggest that if you're prorating downward for residential, you'd need to do likewise for non-residential, so that it's a recognition of the reduction across different customer classes. But I would toss that to Rick. Sorry to put you on the spot, Rick.
No, it's something I've been giving a lot of thought to. is this so? The statute does allow for an ordinance to impose different impact fees on different types of land development. So again, statute says we can do it. I would just want to make sure that if we're charging a different, proportional cost on one class of development versus the other, that there's a rational basis for why the board is doing that. So, you know, just at least putting on the record like why the differentiation between residential and the residential commercial.
Yeah, I would suggest that if you're going to lower one, you need to do the same in kind to your non-residential, so that you're kind of taking it.
So question in the analysis. So this was done based on acreage and based on square footage, right? And I guess the chief, when you look at, you know, another metric that could be used is the call demand for the different types of properties. So residential call demand versus commercial. Because at the end of the day, commercial and industrial are the two segments that are easier to pay their full cost through the property taxes that would be collected versus the services and the incremental costs that the village takes on. So do we have metrics like that? And I don't know, John, if you looked at those?
That is another identifiable service level standard. In the case of the overall growth percentage, we looked at staffing now versus the future. Could you also look at something on a call volume basis? Sure, in terms of defining the growth percentage, but this is what we looked at because it directly correlates to the size of the facility when you look at, you know, number of square footage for identifying that growth percentage overall. Again, I think my point is if you're going to reduce, you know, adopt a reduced impact fee, that is totally your prerogative. Where I would push you towards is doing that. If you're going to reduce it, make that reduction then applicable to both residential and non-residential development.
So for example, if we cut it in half, we cut every number that you have in half.
Correct.
One other question I had is on the single family versus multifamily correlation and how you derive that, and it was all population based. So the single family dwelling was assuming 3 persons at $719 a person, and multifamily just lump sum 2 persons. So in terms of the mix of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, that number, I mean, I don't know how you came up with that number, if there's some sort of index that you used, because it would vary, right?
It would, and it's obviously impossible to know what each individual housing unit is going to develop on over a 20-year period of time. So it is based on industry standard.
So that industry standard, could that be, I mean, the variation within that industry standard, could it be applied that the average multifamily would be 3 persons, so that a dwelling unit would be the same amount, and then we basically prorate off of that, or is that not?
It's generally an attempt to recognize that multifamily development generally comes with less people than a single-family dwelling unit. That's really the intent of a lower fee for multifamily.
But it depends on the number of units. A 3-bedroom is going to have 4 or 5
It does.
people.
Absolutely.
Versus, right?
It does.
I just want to say, yes, I wholeheartedly agree about prorating, just cutting the numbers for non-residential in half as well. And just a quick clarification, Rick, I believe that this impact fee and other impact fees, the board does have the ability to exempt in state statute for affordable housing, does it not?
Yes, there is that. There is an exemption for that, and I don't have the specifics off the top of my head here.
Rick, one other program that we have is when we closed TID 7, we extended it for affordable housing. So kind of the initial parameters of that program was, as long as it met that affordable housing parameters, that the park fees of the permit could be covered through that program. That would definitely be something that we could expand in that program, as long as it follows, you know, the definition of affordability.
Right, and if we're gonna make exemptions, I would want to have that in ordinance, so it's just spelled out exactly like when these exemptions from impact fees would apply. So I pulled up the statute here, so it's. An ordinance enacted under the 6th section may provide for an exemption from or reduction of the impact fees on land development that provides low-cost housing. And usually there's no definition of low-cost housing in statutes, so that's kind of ambiguous about how we define what low-cost affordable housing is.
So we've tried to define that as no more than 30% of the median income in Cottage Grove. So I guess my recommendation would not to be exempted because we have those funds. We can pay ourselves with those funds until they're exhausted. And then I think it would be a good idea to add that exemption. But those funds can't be used for anything else besides affordable housing and improving the housing stock. And so that would be a good use of those funds. I think the big issue, and Aaron could maybe speak more, it's really hard to build anything for $450,000 or less, which is kind of what we're calculating as that no more than 30% median income. So that becomes the other challenge.
I think Chris has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a sort of callback to comment that was said earlier about the Rich Lift Station. Why do we do this now? And I think this whole situation kind of proves why we want to do it now and have some forward planning, because now we're in a situation where we've approved $16 million in debt and we're trying to cobble together a solution after the fact. And I agree with what Paul said. People are struggling to pay their taxes, and that's why I voted against the police station, because it's a huge cost. Unfortunately, I was the only one, and I don't know that trying to cobble together a solution after the fact is the right way to do these things. We got to be proactive about how we are able to pay for these things. I'm super concerned about this disincentivizing housing. I think in the end, a new home that pays property taxes is gonna contribute more to the police station than a hypothetical home that pays property taxes and impact fees but doesn't actually get built because the cost of housing is too high. I've been on the fence about this for a while. I just don't think this is a solution. I wish we had more time to fix the scope and cost of the police station, because I think the time to work to save taxpayer dollars was before it was passed, not passing it and then figuring something else out afterwards.
Just a point of information, I did actually bring this up prior to us voting on the police station last summer, so.
Go ahead, Heidi.
A question for John about the new facility space and how the community room was factored into the new square footage, because we have a community room that it's not really something we offer now, and we didn't really add it in because we're growing. We added in because we don't have any community space that can be used for, like the scouts to use. Like, we have another facility, so like that square footage is an addition in the new facility, but wasn't really attributed to our growth of our community. It's just, we don't have that now. It's not like a huge square foot. I think it's like 1,800 square feet or something, but I was just wondering how we factored that into the equation.
But it was shared space, right? The police department was going to do training in there as well.
So believe it or not, there's a very small training little conference room in MSB. So with the expansion of operations, the intent of that room and other spaces was additional training space. We're still waiting to hear on a grant for that. So hopefully the state is listening and they give us our money for that space or a portion of that space. But yeah, it was kind of prorated. And that's the thing that we have to be careful. As John mentioned, we can't enhance our services by implementing an impact fee, but supplement, obviously.
Wasn't that space also designated as our emergency operations center, Chief?
It was designated as a possible option if the village wanted to head that direction.
Yeah, we were hoping after having that conversation with those individuals, we wanted to first make sure that space worked. But that was one of the key. How do we pull emergency operations out of the facility where everybody's responding to, so you can have response separated from critical response? So that was one of the recommendations of that space, and then obviously having it rentable.
Sure. Okay, thanks. And I guess, you know, some of this conversation goes back to the fees overall, because the higher costs on new housing, you know, it makes it harder for first-time home buyers, older residents that want to downsize. And if our fees, and, you know, commercial investment, because, you know, if our goal is to relieve tax pressure on property owners, we want to grow our commercial and tax base. And so adding fees that are, you know, not in line with our other regional competitors might cause, you know, investment, development, business to go to neighboring communities. And so then we get less growth, less new tax base, and then the people already here will end up sharing the larger proportion of the cost because we'll be growing at a slower rate than projected. So, you know, I think we also have to look at it through the lens of how we want to compete regionally and kind of calibrate our fees so we can stay competitive with our neighbors, because, you know, we have sports complex, we have breweries, we have restaurants, and then if we have, you know, if we were able to, you know, if the sports complex decides to invest here, that might draw further investment that'll improve the, you know, the quality of life that people that live here already and improve our tax base. So I think, you know, looking at things through the lens regionally as well, because we don't, if our fees are so high that we don't have any new commercial investment, our taxes are, you know, how are we going to, we're just going to rely on the residential homes that are already here to continue to pay increasing costs. And if we go back to, you know, why some of these things have increased. When I started on the board, EMS was only stationed in Cottage Grove 2 days a week, or 2 days here and 2 days in Deerfield. So if you called an ambulance for an ambulance, half the time, it was responding from Deerfield. That when I started on the board, yes, it was half the time. It was stationed in 2019. We decided 24/7, 365 coverage in Cottage Grove. And now both stations are staffed 24/7, 365. And our contracted municipalities were paying a very old rate of when they first signed a contract, and it hardly went up to increase costs. And so through the EMS contract negotiations, our contracted municipalities now pay, you know, Pleasant Springs, for example, pays their greater share so we can have this service where we have an ambulance 24/7, 365 in the Cottage Grove station. And there are reasons why service levels have improved over time. And so it's not just due to growth why these service levels, I mean, calling 911, people have an expectation that, you know, if your loved one's having a heart attack, that someone is going to be there, you know, within a certain level, not responding from a neighboring municipality. And I know that's how it worked well for the district for enough time, but those are improvements that we've made in service over time. So, you know, when someone asks, you know, why are taxes going up, in addition, we also only have so much control over the village portion, which of course we're talking about here. But taxes, just because the bill comes from the village of Cottage Grove, does not mean that all of this is due to the village of Cottage Grove. Voters passed a school district referendum that also increased taxes, you know, at the ballot box. So we have to look at all of these things. We can't just focus in on one issue. We have to look at the general picture and how do we create a long-term, financially stable, consistent expectation for services and tax rates. And that is, you know, to have these long-term outlooks and position ourselves to be competitive regionally so we can have that commercial base and, you know, really take the steps needed to relieve the taxpayers and help broaden our tax base and get more commercial growth, and adding more fees that are, you know, excessive and outside of the regional kind of norm, you know, will disincentivize growth, which will hurt us in the long run. So I think we need to take a very close look at our comparable communities and, you know, set our impact fees to compete regionally. And, you know, if you look at our comparables, the median public safety impact fee is about $700. So I think we really need to look at how do we position ourselves to have a strong financial outlook in the future, and having that long-term tax revenue is a much greater benefit than just one smaller short-term payment. So, if we can balance those two things, I think that would be beneficial for our future. Thanks.
Just two things to follow up. One on EMS. The Dane County Comm Center has always and will always call the closest unit available for a patient in need. And if the Cottage Grove ambulance is out right now, the closest unit is actually in Madison. It's not in Deerfield. I've actually done the map. But anyway, I'm glad you said we should look at a broader thing about fees and the cost to homeowners, because one of the things we haven't talked about is park fees. So our park fees are pretty substantial as well. So why don't we throw that into the mix and actually look at a holistic picture of all those things? Why do parks get a pass? So let's have that conversation.
We did talk about the parks fees when we implemented them. If we want to relook at all of our fees all together before implementing this impact, and really look at what the full picture is to build, I think we should look at all of our fees to make sure that we're staying competitive, and also paying for the services that a new development demands. So, if we want to really see what it costs for a new homeowner, we can postpone this and look at the whole picture.
It's interesting. You brought up some good points in terms of, as we've grown, we've been able to do more, right? We've been able to staff 2 ambulances 24/7 in the 2 communities. There's other things that we've done. But what's happened is taxes, or our levy, has gone up faster than inflation since I've moved here. So that's my concern. And so we built a $14 million police station, which really only the existing residents are covering, or the needs assessment is for half. It just seems unfair to double the impact to the existing residents on top of the crazy increases that we've seen. So I really think, and I agree with you, I think looking at our neighboring communities and we should probably look at all the fees, because our park fees are high. But at the end of the day, we don't want to have impact fees that drive developers away. I agree with that.
Well, I have a few things to add myself. I cited my resources with research earlier, and I didn't hear that from any audience members. Maybe you have that, maybe you're willing to share. But I also want to add, Heidi, a lot of what you said is not supported by research, with all due respect. So impact fees are really about fairness. They're not about limiting development. New development creates new service demands. Without impact fees, existing taxpayers subsidize growth. Impact fees reduce long-term debt pressure. Impact fees protect the operating budget. Like just as you mentioned, Pete, the police facilities are capital projects, and their consequences financially are operational that existing taxpayers are mostly responsible for. Impact fees are legally designed for exactly this purpose. And one of the major myths is that impact fees do not stop development. It encourages development. Serious developers already plan for impact fees, utility extensions, park fees, road requirements. What discourages development far more than any fees are unclear infrastructure planning, future emergency tax spikes. So clearly, impact fees are setting, for the most part, a clear signal that growth is welcome and it's going to be responsibly planned. Growth that pays for itself is not supported by fiscal reality. So it's obvious that impact fees, and I didn't hear any outlandish fees proposed. I hear that the group is willing to maybe look at what's reasonable, but impact fees support sustainable growth. They do not slow growth.
Other comments on the law enforcement impact fee?
I just want to make one comment because I've just heard it a couple times. That police station number will be adjusted for final. So it's not saying that 14.6 is the final number. We just have to be a little bit conservative in there because I don't want to collect more than's legally obligated. So once we know how much of the contingency we've eaten, once we know what the net effect of the grants are, we'll come back if this is passed and adjust that number. I just want to make sure we're not intentionally lowering that number. It's a conservative kind of net effect of what we anticipate for grants and contingency usage.
And Cameron, I would just add to that, when I met with the Village of McFarland Economic Development Director last summer, they did exactly that. They waited until the project was done. They knew the exact cost. Consequently, he also told me that he has not seen any slowing in development because of their impact fee, and it's pretty high. I mean, so.
So just to replay what you said so I understand it, you're saying that in support of a lower fee for two reasons. One is you don't want to have a fee that gets recovered in 5 years and then burden the first 5 years of development versus the entire duration, right? Meaning,
overcharge. I don't want to charge an amount that's
Yeah.
so like let's say I had 16.2, which is the project estimate, but it ended up being 15.8. I wouldn't want to charge people more than what was actually the final calculation. So as a reminder, 16.2 is the cost. There's $600,000 of contingency in there. There's roughly $300,000 or $400,000 of grant money in there. So there's other factors. So that's why, obviously with residents and other people listening, I just want to be crystal clear. The cost of the police station is estimated to be 16.2. This is just calculating on some conservative numbers for now until we'll adjust it. Likely that number is going to go up. So for me, if we move forward with the police station, it would be helpful if we were implementing something, let's just say 60% of the calculated cost. Once these numbers get updated, it would be easier to come back and say, final cost, here's what the new 60% cost is, unless you guys are just fine with a flat. I'd still come and present an updated cost, but I would just need that for the future once that project is completed.
so what you said is in support of a lower fee, which certainly helps developers and is a smaller hurdle as they're looking at development, right?
I can't support one way or the other, but yes, and I guess the one comment I guess I'll have on the park, I do agree our park fees are high. We're talking about two projects that both get levied for. So just because we reduce one and increase the other, like we're still levying the same amount. So the intent would be to try to bring it down if we're trying to reduce building costs. So just want to make sure that those are pulling from the same resources.
I think I've said, since last summer that I didn't support the law enforcement impact fee, but I think there's a lot of lessons learned, and the conversations we're having tonight would be very applicable to we finished the fire and EMS study, and it makes a lot more sense to me to look for a substation fire and EMS impact fee versus a law enforcement fee, which we've already budgeted for and had a financial plan for. But I wish this conversation would have happened a decade ago, and we would have had impact fees collected for the building of this police station. I think the conversation again tonight, I think it should be directed towards fire and EMS. But.
Well, whether we had it before or now, there's $7 million or half. I don't want to keep using that number. Approximately half of the cost of this police station, certainly the space, is related to planning for future growth. And that future growth is what's driving the need. Without that future growth, we'd have built a police station that's half the size. So I don't know if the timing of the conversation is as important as getting it right and not increasing what existing homeowners have to pay in taxes to cover for the growth. And a reduced, and I like what Paul had suggested, is a reduced amount from the maximum amount that, John, you'd put together seems reasonable, and dovetailing it in with neighboring communities so that we don't stand out as the high cost.
Other comments?
I think generally there's a lot of unanswered questions, and there's obviously differing viewpoints. You know, Robert Proctor, you gave some good information for us to consider. Perhaps we table this whole conversation and include the park fees with it, to really have a holistic view, and then look at some of the data that has been provided to us. I don't know what the board thinks about that, but something to consider.
Well, I think we really want to be competitive and fair. And so I think that that's in the best interest of our future financial stability and recovering some of the costs and yet planning for the future. And we want to make sure that there's attainable housing for, families, seniors, individuals, anyone that wants to call Cottage Grove home, anyone that wants to invest their business in Cottage Grove, bring jobs here, provide services to people in Cottage Grove, bring tourists here. I think that, those are all goals. And then also help spread the tax burden across more people, more businesses, that will help our future, become more stable, more predictable, to have these, strategies in place to help offset the cost to our existing residents. But we don't want to disincentivize investment in our community. So I think if we look at this full picture, look at all of the fees and calibrate them so we are, we maintain a strong competitiveness regionally, yet, help offset the cost for our infrastructure investments that our whole community will benefit from. I think that, if we can get, more data across more communities and include, the total cost to build, I think that would help us, make a decision on, what the right fee is for our community. So if we can expand on that, commercial and housing, so we can kind of make sure we're remaining competitive yet recover costs. Is that something we can get for next, as kind of suggested here?
I mean, so here's the challenge, right? We've already said a developer's coming Wednesday, right? And so we know that if we're going to do the Ridge Lift Station, it really should be tonight. So what about some sort of compromise? I'm not crazy about the Ridge Lift Station because I feel like there's other issues that aren't addressed. You guys aren't crazy about the law enforcement impact fee. I've already offered a compromise number. What if we find numbers that work for both and try to work toward a compromise? I'm open to a compromise.
Chris has his hand up.
When you say that, Paul, you're talking about a compromise on the law enforcement, so that, or are you saying a compromise that includes some alteration of the water and sewer?
Yes, I'm saying law enforcement, but also the sewer, but also that dollar amount, because to the point that Robert and others have made, and you guys have made, right, there's the affordability with, first-time home buyers. So can we come to maybe our total number of impact fees that we're all comfortable with, of some sort?
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'd be hesitant to table the water and sewer just because I hate to get to April 1st and then have it get zeroed out and have one or multiple developments come through and then we don't capture any of that.
One point of clarification is the Plan Commission, a week from this Wednesday, is a concept. It's not they're not applying for any development. They're coming for feedback. So that wouldn't apply to that rule, but it's still a tight time frame regardless with April 1st, but it's not necessarily urgent tonight.
So we have some time on that. I guess, when you look at the fees, I mean, half the fees are park fees. So there's two buckets of park fees, and I'm just wondering if the park fees, which I think are applied to all parks, benefits all members of the community. And so moving that to the levy, reducing the hurdle to actually build and reducing it 2,500, and I don't know.
There's some so park fees, a little bit different, not impact fees. Those park fees collected, like for example, all the park fees collected in Shady Grove have to be used in that area. They're not general fees. I'm not an expert on where that statute came from. Maybe Rick knows more, but those do have to follow.
Understood.
Yep.
What I'm saying is if it's a park fee that's a part of a building permit, it needs to go to that development, that particular parcel, or that plat, right?
Yep.
So that's what you said. So if we took it off, it would go to the levy, but it benefits all residents.
Yeah.
So it seems more plausible on some of the park fees should be part of the levy, not part of an upfront hurdle to build.
Same with the police station. It's a moving lever. They're both levy fees. So yeah, if you lower the park fee and increase the PD, yeah, it's the same bucket.
You're squeezing the balloon, but the point is the analysis that John did showed that, for every 1,000 people, we have an officer, which requires so many square feet, which drives the police station to be twice as big as it would otherwise, right?
Correct. So the question really is, a lot of the park fees we collect are for future parks. So if we reduce the park fees, you're not going to have as much money for future facilities, but you'll have more money to help service the debt service payment. So that's a policy decision.
So the parks fees, we have the Parks and Open Space Plan, which dictates how many square feet of park we should have per person. So generally, we want to maintain that over time. I mean, it's not like as much of a, it's more like the public safety, what service level is acceptable for our community is the same with law enforcement or public safety as it is with parks versus the engineering question with water and sewer. Like, we need this size pipe to serve this much water usage, where those are kind of not laid out. It's sort of a community decision. How much parkland do we want per resident?
Policy, yep. Same with service level, like 2 officer minimums, how it's whatever level of service you want. Obviously then dictates the facility, which then dictates how much is growth compared to existing.
And so then the fee in lieu of parkland is if a developer either dedicates enough land to maintain that acreage per resident, or how much the equivalent would be to purchase that acreage.
That's the fee in lieu.
That's the fee in lieu.
So I'm getting a nod from Aaron.
That's how we develop those numbers with the committee over time. And then, if you're building, also the cost of building a park have increased, and much like the cost of building any infrastructure has increased. So I guess that's how we updated that over time. But, if we want to take a look at those and make sure that we're remaining competitive with that, then,
Which should be a separate agenda item, because that's not in the ordinance
yes.
for discussion tonight. Okay.
So, Matt, you're saying we're not under the gun for tonight, so we could
No.
move this to the next meeting and also have a conversation about park fees?
For that, regarding that residential development, yes. Yeah. Regarding Ridge Road, would Lindstrom have applied? I mean, there's not that was a tabled pre-annexation.
Right, so an approval is, it's kind of broadly defined. I don't think an annexation or, let me just pull it up. So an approval is a permit or authorization for building, zoning, driveway, stormwater, or any other activity related to a project. So I think that arguably includes plats. So if somebody's just coming in for a concept, that's not an application for an approval. So it's when they submit their complete application for any sort of development approval that they would need from the village. So annexation wouldn't count as like an approval. But I think any zoning approval, obviously, or any plat would be likely the first things you would see. But they would have to identify the full scope of the project when they're submitting that application.
So if I'm hearing you right, Lindstrom Acres, Lennar next Wednesday would, it could be covered if this is delayed. An example of one that would have already applied would be like the sports facility.
Right. So sports facility, they would be under the current regulations as they are written in the ordinance.
I would make a motion to table the ordinance conversation for impact fees to the next meeting.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion on tabling?
I guess, do you staff have enough guidance on what we would like to see to be able to get to a compromise on this?
Yeah, from what I'm understanding, it's just additional data. Taking a look at park impact fees. I think it would also be maybe helpful to work with Sean on what future parks are going to be that are intended to be used with impact fees and what the possible debt implications would be. I think, from what I remember, I'm pretty sure the only really big project that's left is the big park after West Lawn. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit hesitant committing to March 16th or 18th. That's a really tight timeline. We have our audit in 2 weeks, so my capacity to pull that together might be a little tight. But we can certainly aim for that.
So you're saying that, so bringing it back April 6th?
I think I'll target my best March.
Recording
March 6th.
stopped. Recording in progress.
Just to make sure enough time passed before the recording started back up. I'll target March 18th, but if it falls off of that, it's just a capacity. So it would be then the April 7th.
And I guess what information would we need for the parks fees? I mean, what they are existing, and add those to these other fees as far as hypotheticals in comparison to a handful of comparable Dane County communities.
Yeah, just like we did with law enforcement and water and sewer. I think that would be helpful. And then also more information on the Ridge Lift Station, and it doesn't have to be for the full group because I know they've been through it, but perhaps for Renee and I, since it's new to us being on the board.
Sure.
So that would be fabulous as well.
Yeah, we definitely, does the whole board want a presentation on Ridge, or do we want just the Renee and Paula?
I don't need an update on it.
Okay. Yeah, we can schedule something.
So basically, are you saying, so there's a document in the agenda tonight that has all of the building permit fees when you pull, it's called building permit fee, right? That has the parkland and the sewer and the water.
Correct.
And all of that. So it's building this out with more municipalities like directly adjacent to us where competition might go. So
I mean,
is that what you're looking for? And then also, this is for a residential home, but we want to see industrial and we want to see commercial too.
Industrial and commercial. I would say that when you're putting a table together like this, it becomes challenging because there's 25, I used the study that was referenced earlier, I used the same 2,500 square foot that was in that Madison building study because it was a baseline, and obviously there were professionals who have that study. But yeah, I would agree, maybe what the average Cottage Grove is, a large home is, and then commercial would be helpful in each context. We could put together outside of Wanakee to Forest, Windsor, McFarland. I think of other communities that are somewhat similar, as like Oregon. I mean, Maple Bluff is kind of landlocked, so that's not really a good comparable. Verona. Deerfield is really tough. Fitchburg would would be a good one.
Stoughton.
Stoughton. I will listen back on the recording for these additional, and again, I will make every effort to get this on the 18th and pull that information together.
So then the direction, I mean, we had the expert in the room give us the, what the fee could be at the max. But then there's been some talk about a flat fee, cutting it down to 700. So where's that direction going?
I think you said a flat fee's not really feasible. It needs to be prorated. If it's 50%, 60%, 40%, it would be the.
I guess what's coming back at the next
I think,
meeting then?
I think, well, I think it depends on how these others compare and how, where we'd be. Is if, Paula had suggested something that's somewhere around the 50% mark, right?
Right, but we want to see that across classes, I guess, is.
Yeah.
Right.
So then in the table to have it, the different scenarios for us, I guess. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, there's a motion and a second on tabling until a future meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, move on to unfinished business. Discuss and consider moving the March 16th meeting to March 18th. Historically, I can't remember, for many years, they've moved the board meeting because of the Strings Fest that occurs for the entire district. And so there is a request to move it from that Monday to Wednesday, and the library board is willing to forego their meeting.
I would move moving the March 16th village board meeting to March 18th.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Severson, second by Dahl. Any other discussion on this one?
I just want to make a comment that I think that's a Wednesday night.
Yep.
I don't get done with work until 7 that night, so I will be late.
Okay.
Could we just have a later start time?
Do you want to start at 7 and log in virtually?
Yeah, I can log in virtually. Mm-hmm.
Chris, does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Start at 7. All right. All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. We have discuss and consider restoration and demolition plans for TID 9 with 2 attachments, and I'll turn it over to a staff member.
Sorry. So kind of, obviously TID 9 is in various stages of demolition costs. So one of the things we wanted to bring forward tonight was kind of, one, getting clear direction on restoration on 101 East Cottage Grove Road, but also to kind of reaffirm what current staff direction is as it specifically relates to when a property is ready to be demolished and restored. So in the memo tonight, we are requesting kind of a budget in between 9 and 10 or 11,000 for to contract to have a company come in, clean up the kind of the rest of the rubble and kind of professionally restore that corner just due to the high visibility. We reached out to a couple. When I say we, I mean Kyla reached out to several vendors, Houston, Hamburg, and the Ultimate
G-Force.
And G-Force.
Ground Force.
Because this is under 25,000, it's something that's not required to be publicly bid for public improvements. But just because we're not required to do publicly bidding doesn't mean we don't want to get multiple pricing for this restoration. Due to the, like I said, the corner being kind of a public corner, it just, what staff would be able to do from a quality perspective probably does not match the high visibility of, and frankly, capacity of said staff to be able to go out there and take care of that. So all of that cost would be borne by the TID district. Do you want to pull up the map?
Motion to approve.
Oh, perfect. Well, there's a couple other in the recommendation in the memo. So sorry. But essentially, we just want to make sure that as these properties come available, working with law enforcement, EMS, and fire for training opportunities, as long as there's no red flags, great. And then secondly, 612, we've identified as no longer rentable. We've disconnected gas and electric. And we're going to start that process of working with EMS and fire to training opportunities, followed by a demolition plan to be presented at a future meeting.
All right, there's a motion. I'll second it. And then we can discuss.
So I had two questions. One is, I'm assuming it's just seed?
Seed, mulch, grading, make sure
It'll
everything
still be
grades
done- okay.
properly.
So as long as it's done in the spring, it should recover nice. The other question is 612, foundation problems. I mean, are they structural where it's condemned? Or is it, I mean.
So it's our property, so we'd have to condemn it ourselves.
Right.
So Jim, our building inspector, noticed some cracks in the foundation. So it's either us going and spending money to have an engineer determine if it's structurally unsafe to continue. And so I would prefer to not spend those additional funds to make that determination before we lease it out, and go ahead and demolish and restore it.
The location of the foundation is something you would never see unless you walk around the very back side of the building to like this back parking lot. So you're walking all the way around and it's not in great condition.
It's pretty easy to determine if it's a safety hazard. If it is, obviously, then demolition is
Yeah.
the preferred option versus spend the money on it. But, you know, I think everybody has a crack in their basement somewhere, so it just depends on the severity. And I see that it is still marketed. Has there been any interest at all? I mean.
No, because it's basically cold storage, and that's part of the reason.
It's just not attractive.
It's really hard to have somebody invest in and recover the CapEx in the course of a lease. So yeah,
thanks.
Good question, Pete.
All right, other comments? It would be nice if fire or EMS or police came and gave a presentation again like they did before on like what they plan to do or how they would use it. I think that's good for us to see and for them to tell us and the public to see as well. So I'd like to see that if those buildings are wanting to be used for training purposes.
Yep, 100%. And kind of looking forward to 107 when we close on that property. It would be nice to have a preliminary plan for both properties presented now for remaining of the year training opportunities, and then we can push communications out, help, with their recruiting efforts and such.
Yeah. All right. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain? Motion carries. New business. Discuss and consider Resolution 2026-05 recognizing Women in History Month.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right. Motion by Severson, second by Dahl. Any other discussion on this? We will hopefully have some social media Cottage Grove things planned, but we'll see. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, we have discuss and consider ordinance 05-2026 recycling with a bunch of documents.
As part of the administrative code, there was a bunch of updates that we had to do for a recycling ordinance. There's a memo that kind of debriefs that, and then the DNR correspondence with what exactly has to be updated for the recycling ordinance, mostly based on responsibilities for multi-unit dwellings. Stafford updated the ordinance and that per the DNR requirements, and then cleaned up a few other things that were out of date as well. That's what's included in the packet.
Any questions or comments?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 05-2026 regarding recycling as presented.
Second.
All right, motion by Murphy, second by Severson. Any other discussion on the recycling ordinance? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, we have discussed and consider creation of the debt reduction task force with a memo in the agenda. Turn it over to Trustee Severson.
I'd like to actually propose that we table this agenda item until the next meeting, please. Or should I make the motion? Is that okay? I don't know.
It's,
I'll
you can
second
make
that,
the-
I'll second that implied
Thank
We'll
motion.
say that's a motion by Severson and a second by Dahl to postpone until the next meeting. Just carry that over onto the next agenda. Any other discussion on the table? All right. Otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Oh, we already did the Colonial Club. So we'll move on to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. The library board's up first. The library board met on Wednesday, February 18th at 6 o'clock. We discussed revising our very long FAQ and pulling everything together. We also discussed new programming to occur at Glen Grove. And Monica is going to work in some additional Friday nights community programming there. We had a Colonial Club talk, which was a really great kind of kickoff to our new partnership with them to get the word out about senior services in Cottage Grove. Lots of story times, we have the teddy bear sleepover coming up with the police station. We received an International Brain Research Grant, so you probably have seen that kind of release. We've got books available. We've got multiple talks. We've got Brains at the Bookmobile. So a lot of fun things happening this month. And shout out to Monica, who read to every single 4K student in the district. We approved our bills list and had some correspondence and a friends report. And our next meeting will now be in April, since we just moved the village board meeting. Although I suppose we could meet as a library board if we wanted to right before the village board, but I think we can probably just push it off. So, any questions on the library board? Okay. We already talked about Deer Grove EMS, so we'll move on to the Cottage Grove Fire District. Me or Peter? I sub for Heidi.
Thank you again for subbing for me. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I can keep going if you want. Cottage Grove Joint Fire District Commission meeting was on Monday, February 23rd. We discussed and considered the minutes. We had the chief's report. There are 41 people on the roster. There are about 50 calls as of 2/18, which puts this kind of right on the same path as last year. There was a couple issues with the ladder truck, which was repaired. We had a discussion or update on the revising the town and village ordinances regarding false alarms, and I think Rick and the three chiefs met, discussed, and really had good conversation and had some collaboration. And I think that will be coming to a future meeting, perhaps the next one.
Yeah. Right now, so we have an ordinance draft together. I sent to the chiefs for comment, and I think after that, I'll send it to the town attorney. So we'll see when it comes back.
Yeah, and then the town will also be adopting something probably similar. We didn't have to consider funding replacing the chairs in the fishbowl because there was donations and the foundation that took care of that. We approved the sale of old thermal imaging cameras and then used the unspent capital funds to purchase kind of little thermal imaging cameras that'll go on their uniform. Yeah, and with the extra money that was in the budget for that, which was about, I think it was enough to purchase four, yeah, three of them. Yeah. And the next meeting date then is March 23rd at 6:30. Any questions on Cottage Grove Fire?
Just a comment, Paula. So fire overheard the meeting. There's just a comment that, we required them to provide their budget in July, which resulted in kind of a more conservative budget that than that they needed. It's not due until September per our guideline. But anyways, we're actually invoiced for actual costs. So if the costs never incur, it's just a budgetary savings that we will end up seeing. So there's not like we're over levying or overcharging. We'll just fall into fund balance and move into next year. So no concerns there.
And given this is the first year for the paid per call, are they doing quarterly reports on that financial reports or?
I have yet to see an invoice that has the paid per call on it. I'll have to touch base with April and Nick. I believe they thought quarterly was better than monthly. I'm not sure if they worked with their attorney on how like that compensation works, because you got to define the payroll, and so I don't know where that is in their process, because they could say they're kind of like board members compensated quarterly, and that could be their frequency of payroll.
It would be interesting at least to get the quarterly reports back to the board so we would know kind of how that's looking, I guess. Yeah.
Seeing how the calls are tracking almost slightly more than April had really good data on calls and call type by month. It was actually pretty exceptional. So I think we're going to be pretty close to what she estimated.
Okay. Chris, law enforcement.
We met on February 24th at MSP at 5:30. There were no public appearances. We approved the minutes. Old business, we had an update about the police station project. Raleigh Construction's going to get started in the first couple weeks of March here, and they're going to have a groundbreaking on March 25th at noon. We reviewed the annual reports. I recommend everybody take a look at it. It's pretty good. Talked about the Teddy Bear Sleepover on March 11th. We had a discussion related to the relationship between Monona and Madison and mutual aid. We gave some direction on some potential e-bike and e-scooter usage in the village, using sort of McFarland's ordinance as a framework, and we're going to refine that from once we talk about that next time. We approved moving future meetings to Village Hall so that they can be recorded and people can watch them afterwards. We went over the January Chiefs reports, and that is it. We also have on the agenda tonight a flock equipment overview. So unless there's any questions, Chief, take it away.
Thank you. So again, LEC was given an overview, documents that are included, covered, basically the insight. I have actually Representative Carrie McCormick that is online this evening. I'm going to turn over so he can start the presentation for the board. I envision that he will be brief and concise in attending to the meeting. So, Carrie, it's yours.
Thank you so much, Chief. Can you all hear me? All right. So good evening. My name is Kerry McCormick. I'm on the public affairs team at Flock Safety. I was a Cleveland City Councilman for 10 years in Cleveland, Ohio. So I am very cognizant that you are in a late meeting right now. To confirm to our chairperson, do you want me to run through the presentation? I can be pretty quick, or do you want me to just answer questions?
I think there's been so much kind of public comments about this. It'd be nice, I know it's late, to have the presentation.
You got it.
You can talk
100%.
fast.
All right, I'll talk fast. Okay, can you see my screen?
It's loading.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So again, my name is Kerry McCormick. I'm on the public affairs team at Flock Safety. As I noted previously, I served for 10 years as a member of Cleveland City Council, so appreciate your public service. A quick overview of our company. We are an American company. We were founded and are headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. But like me, out of Cleveland, we've got a lot of folks around the country that work for Flock. We partner with about 6,000 communities across the country. And so those are small towns to big cities, everything in between. 49 out of the 50 states. The only state we are not a partner with is Alaska at this point. And then we've got about 1,500 business customers. So those are HOAs, homeowners associations. They are mom and pop shops to big retail. And then as you can see here, some quick data points. We are proud of the work we do across those 6,000 communities every day to reduce crime and also to find missing people, which is a big component of our mission. So as we look at kind of our major issue here, many law enforcement agencies across the country are dealing with resource issues, be it financial, be it the size of their police stations, or be it, you know, many with personnel. So we are a tool for law enforcement to really bring efficiency as well as support for the good work that they do on a daily basis. So we don't replace police. We're just a tool to really help them do their jobs more efficiently and effectively. So I'll talk about two products tonight. First one is license plate readers. This is the one product that we're most known for. What this does is it takes a photo of a back of a vehicle on a public right-of-way, so on a public road. And what this captures is the license plate of the vehicle as well as the back of the vehicle. The cameras are infrastructure free, so they're generally solar. They have 24/7 coverage, and they also they work around real-time alerts. So what that means is that if there is a license plate in either a local or statewide, for example, database, because it is associated with a crime or a missing person, it will ping your police department to say, hey, that vehicle that you're looking for just passed this intersection, wherever that camera is located. If your license plate is not associated with a crime or a missing person, it will not create an alert. And then these are also ethically built. They do not do facial recognition. They don't do speed tickets. And they also do not do any personal information. So the camera does not have BMV records, or the system doesn't know who's driving the car, doesn't have, again, facial recognition or any of that type of personal information. We just talked about those alerts, so I'm getting ahead of myself here. But again, if a vehicle drives by a camera associated with a crime or a missing person, it will alert your police department. And these include amber alerts for missing children, as well as silver alerts for missing senior citizens that have cognitive challenges. So the vehicle fingerprint is the back of the vehicle. So we find that, you know, if you talk to law enforcement, at times, individuals, especially those who commit frequent crimes, will remove their plate, will switch their plate out, put a temporary tag, things like that. So the camera is able to pick up on the vehicle make, body type, color, those types of components of the vehicle. Live video cameras. So our live video cameras, again, are 100% cloud-based, so they do not require you know, significant IT. They are proactive monitoring and also record, generally for 30 days is the retention period. And then all that software and hardware and cellular connectivity is included in that camera. And then if it is a PTZ, pan, tilt, zoom camera, your PD can move the camera around remotely. So this is, again, PTZ video. We also offer fixed video, and they're very high quality. So we understand that public safety is critical to communities, as is privacy and transparency. And this is why we take this so seriously, and it's built into our ethos and operation systems. So on the right-hand side, this is a summary of how we work to protect privacy. So 100% of our customers' data is owned by the customer. So data is the photos of the license plates and the videos taken by those videos. And Flock does not sell any data, period. Private customers, so those retail, mom and pops, or HOAs, do not have access to government data or hot lists. So essentially, they can't see what your law enforcement can see through your law enforcement's existing systems. The data is deleted after 30 days. So on a rolling basis, the photos of the license plate or the video recording of a live camera is hard deleted after 30 days, and it is unrecoverable. This is important because it allows enough time for your police department to find it useful for investigations, but it also gives it a finite period so community members know that that data is not being preserved for long periods of time. Flock LPR only takes images of publicly available information. Again, that license plate on a public road. And then if your agency decides to share with other communities, that is completely up to you and your agency. And so different communities have different approaches to sharing, completely up to each community on how or if they do that. The right-hand side, without walking through all this, while the data on the our databases, again, are not personally identifiable, we still treat that data very seriously from a protections standpoint. So you'll see here on the green side, the independent certifications that stress test our system. Our system's data, customer data, has never been hacked, and we want to keep it that way. Transparency, also really important. Every search in the system requires a registered ID with a search reason or case number. And all of the use of the system, either by your police department or let's say you share with a neighboring community, any use of your system is permanently audited. So while that data, the photos and the video deletes after 30 days, a really important transparency component of this system is you're able to look back until the very beginning of your contract to see how your system was used. And we really encourage folks to run those audits on a regular basis just to keep up on how the system is being used. And we're also working on proactive auditing alerts for potential misuse. Right-hand side of your screen, this is what we call a transparency portal. And what this is it just shows, this is a public-facing website. It's optional for your community whether you want to do it or not. It doesn't cost any more. And it just shows the information about your system. So your retention period, how many cameras do you have, your your policy of your use policy, who you share with, as well as other components. So other just things to highlight, there are really important search filters that are built into the system that your community can choose whether to turn on or not. So for example, some of those would be, there are search filters that prevent anyone internally or anywhere from that you share with from searching any issue related to immigration or reproductive health. There is also no federal access in our national or state lookup. Only agencies can share that data. So when you sign up with Flock, there are no sharing privileges on. You have to opt into those sharing relationships. And there are guardrails in place to ensure that if you share, who you're sharing with matches your values. We're proud of our partners. So we work with the National Center for Missing and Endangered Children. I think to date, the number is around 1,000 children in the existence of the company that they've partnered with law enforcement to bring home. We're very proud of that. We also partner with folks like Mothers Against Drunk Driving and NAAC branches, for example, the branch in Oakland, California, who highlighted Flock's technology as a technology that helps produce equitable justice and reducing police bias as well. And then I won't go through these, but we have over 200 law enforcement agencies in Wisconsin. You can see a few there. And these are all real life examples reported out in the public media of how our technology was used, partnering with law enforcement on real issues. So here, this is a missing endangered man reunited with their family, stolen U-Haul truck, so theft. This one here is an armed robbery out of Wisconsin that was solved using our technology. Oh, and I think that is the end of my slide deck. So again, we're really proud of the impact that the technology has on public safety and finding missing folks, as well as the privacy and transparency components that are built into the system to ensure public trust. Thank you.
I might turn it back over to Chief. Yeah.
Just a quick question for I'm sorry, I forgot his name, but From Flock. There was an NPR article that had mentioned that Flock uses workers in the Philippines to train the AI using real images from the United States. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So again, vast majority of our employees are here in the United States. We have a contract with a firm around when there are glitches in the system that help the machine learning rectify whatever that glitch is. So for example, if if a new license plate comes out in a state and the plate is being misread by the cameras, that issue can be lifted up to be rectified so that they're properly reading the cameras. And again, that's a group, an international group, as you noted, that reviews those video or those mistakes.
Chief, do you want to talk a little bit about the program that we have in Cottage Grove?
So Cottage Grove started utilizing flock cameras back in 2022. It's been a very instrumental tool for the agency in dealing with a lot of various matters and incidents. As was highlighted there was obviously the location of elderly dementia patient that came up from Illinois. In addition, it's been utilized for dealing with elderly resident scam victims, financial institution thefts, quick change scams, burglaries at businesses, entries to vehicle thefts here in the village, location of an out-of-state homicide suspect was utilized up here in Dane County, and also dealing with specifically here in Cottage Grove, a work violence threat investigation. We've had a lot of collaboration with not only our neighbor agencies, but agencies here in Wisconsin and also other states in resolving some of the crimes that have occurred in the area. As was referenced, we do not share with any agencies related to medical or immigration status or anything of that nature. We do have a very healthy share component with other law enforcement entities that has been very beneficial, not just for us, but also for them in their criminal investigations. When we deal with, as you're well aware, I've mentioned it before, criminals don't know boundaries. It's a very mobile society. We've had international criminal elements that have come through Cottage Grove that have been involved in crimes in multiple states. So this has been truly a great resource for helping us to effectively investigate and resolve some crimes. With that, we are seeking to implement the transparency portal that was referenced. You saw Maple Bluffs there. We have one ready to go and release, and that's forward-facing, as they stated, so it'd be on the website. Click on it. Literally, you can see all the information to include our policy that references automated license plate readers. And also one of the functions that that portal has is you can do a self-audit, i.e. as a citizen, and you can see how many checks or searches have done. It doesn't give you any personal information, so it's protective that way. We have implemented in our policy the internal audit component. We've been doing them monthly. In policy, we have it that we have to do it at least quarterly as a minimum, but we have been doing it monthly to make sure that there's no abuses, because I don't want Cottage Grove to be as some of the other communities that have been in the news of late to the east of us. So we're staying on top of that and making sure that this equipment and these tools are being utilized to the benefit for the community and its safety.
comments or questions on FLOC?
So we obviously discussed this at LEC, but, wanted to have this venue. So the ACLU of Wisconsin has called for more reporting as well as stopping data sharing out of the state. So I know that we have a wide swath of who we data share with. What would be the reasons why we would share with out-of-state entities?
The reason share with out-of-state entities is truly the mobility of personnel, whether it's an endangered individual and or the criminal element. As I referenced, we had literally a business that was burglarized here in the village. Utilizing the FLOC, we were able to locate an individual who was from the state just south of us, and also address the other businesses that he hit. It was a couple. They hit not only here in Cottage Grove, but in Illinois. That's one. We've also had some that have come from Indiana, from Iowa. So we've recovered a stolen vehicle that was out of Texas. So again, it's a true resource that helps minimize the amount of man hours that it would take to track this stuff down.
And I know when we talked at LEC, we talked about the high-speed chase that happened in Cottage Grove, and that the car that was coming in triggered the FLOC camera as a stolen vehicle. Dane County was responding. You tried to call Dane County off because you were trying to work something. So how much does that happen where something triggers and you see an outside agency like that kind of coming in and muddying the waters, if you will, on our response?
To say it doesn't happen would be improper. Does it happen all the time? No. And again, there's usually good collaboration that occurs. The circumstances that occurred with that one, I'd like to say it's a one-off, and that's what we try to make sure we have open lines of communication to try and limit that so that we do limit the exposure to the community.
And then one final question, and it's actually for Rick. There was a court case in the state of Washington where the judge ruled that images are subject to open records. Does Wisconsin have a law in that regard to FLOC cameras?
It's a difficult question. So, because any document or any recording that we have is technically a public record under Wisconsin's public record law. But there are exceptions and there's a balancing test. So basically, if the interest in public disclosure is outweighed by the interest in not disclosing, you can withhold disclosure of that record. So I'm not aware of any Wisconsin cases on that at this point in time. But if we have a recording and it's our data, it is still technically a record that somebody could request. But there are security concerns, and especially like the location of FLOC cameras, like that's something that we'd want to keep guarded to the extent possible. So I don't know if it's a clear-cut case of if somebody requests that, if it would automatically be disclosed.
So the fact that they delete the data every 30 days, does that potentially create a challenge?
No, basically you have as long as you have a set retention schedule and you're following your retention schedule for the data, that's important for the public records law.
One other caveat to that is obviously Wisconsin has the Marcy's law that protects victims from any crimes. So that also plays into effect, and also the disclosure of private information, as attorney referenced, that balancing act, where we're not jeopardizing somebody's safety by disclosing information.
I really appreciate this presentation because I think it's good to hear, from Flock and from you, Chief Gary, on how we utilize the data in our agency. So I just want to go back to a little bit about data sharing with out-of-state and how that process works. Do out-of-state agencies, do we open it up that they can just search our database on their own, or do they contact your agency to get that information?
So they make a request to have permission to be able to access the flock cameras that we have here in the village. If we grant that permission, they can then search and check them, but they still fall under the same guidelines. They have to notate what the reason is for the search, i.e., so like here, our protocol is you have to have the case number and the reason. You have to have both of those elements for why you're looking at that information. So that's a criteria they have to meet also.
So it's not, when you're sharing data, it's not an open, like these specific agencies can have access at any time for any reason. There needs to be a specific reason, and it's limited to that scope, and beyond that, they have no access.
If we find that they're abusing it, then we cut their privilege to look at our system.
So these agencies are set up as open access?
They're set up that if we give them permission, yes, they have open access. Again, that's why we do our audits. So if we see that there's an abuse, we then take that permission away.
So if they make a request, they're enabled, they're online, it doesn't sunset. It continues and they have access, open access.
It's collaboration amongst the law enforcement entities.
Seems a little excessive in terms of privacy, but, I mean, if there's a reason, I mean, what you'd said originally was that they got a reason, a case number, okay, you can have access, but other than that, it seems, unless there's a purpose, it seems a little too open.
It's the same as calling another department and saying, hey, do you have this information?
I guess the other question I want to ask, because I've been asked this, is about how there's no expectation of privacy when you're out in public, but there is an expectation that you're not subject to unreasonable search unless you're. So that's where it goes into filling in, the case and the reason to search the data. And so we have the internal audit of that, and we're working on an external facing public, where the public can see why, the flock was searched. So those are the steps that we're taking to show, how this data is being used, and that we're following our own written policy on how information's accessed. So to talk to someone about their concerns about privacy and surveillance, like those are the steps we're taking to maintain privacy and ensure that we're not just surveying, the public.
Correct. And one thing related to flock, it's a photo in time or in an instance. It isn't, there's this that you could put a plate in to the system and then it would track it every camera that it encountered. That's not how the system works. It's a photo in time. It's still, if you were going to try to utilize it that way, that means an officer or detective would have to literally sit down and go through and plot out how the vehicle traveled. And again, I say vehicle because that's what the flock camera is capturing. A motor vehicle that's out on the public roadway. It doesn't capture the driver, it doesn't capture anything related to the operator of the vehicle.
Any other discussion for flock camera?
I just say thank you for the presentation. I think it was helpful to have it here at the board in addition to law enforcement, so I'm glad it came. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee.
All right, so we met on Thursday, February 26th, and we talked logistics of festival weekend, and we'll have Miracle League games overlapping on the Thursday night of the festival. So Kevin Laufenberg it worked out very well that he's on Parks, Rec, and Forestry, and then as the festival chair. So we could talk about the parking flow and ensuring that the ADA accessible, that the parking lot is, priority for Miracle League. But then, of course, we have the overflow parking as discussed for the festival. So, we kind of just have a couple of chunks. When the first game, people are arriving, and the second game, people are arriving. So, talked with Kevin about the flow for that. Then we talked about tile wall options for the Bakken Park playground. Of course, the Miracle League playground is looking to, they'll be starting construction coming up late spring, early summer, and kind of working back from the timeline of pouring the poured in place surfacing has to be poured with certain minimum temperatures overnight. So, if we're working with that goal of, making sure that's in September, working back, they're looking to start deconstruction in the first week of May. So thinking about how we're deconstructing everything and the tile wall options, the way the tile wall was installed, we can make it work with the new poured in place surfacing around and the recognition wall for the Miracle League. So the tile wall will remain as is, and we'll be installing everything around it. So we didn't really have to talk about many options with that, just about the timeline and the investigation of how that was installed in the first place. So, and Mike Hackle gave a lot of information about the installation in the first place, so that was quite helpful. Then I don't think this is on, there's no discuss and consider on the dinks and drinks, so that'll probably come back then next meeting, because we did recommend to, to allow alcohol at Bakken Park for the dinks and drinks as discussed at Parks and Rec. So we'll have that on next agenda. It was a relatively short meeting. Sean's director's report was attached as well. One thing to note is our mowing routes are now in our GIS system, so staff found some adjustments in routes, and committee kind of gave some feedback about some areas that we need to adjust our mowing that was not really in our purview of what should be mowed. So out Ridge Road, like out on some more rural sections, we were mowing regularly where it should be treated more like a rural area where, like the town only mows it twice a year to keep down, because it's more of a rural roadway than an urbanized roadway. So modifying those mowing routes, so finding some efficiencies in our system there. Otherwise, we'll be meeting again fourth Thursday of March. Any questions, or Sean, if you had anything to add?
You nailed it.
Comments from the board? All right, so otherwise we'll move on to Emergency Preparedness Committee. Met on Friday, February 27th. We approved with some minor edits an emergency management preparedness plan and ordinance changes for recommendation to the village board. Because this meeting was just on Friday, we didn't have it for today's meeting, but we will work on having that at the next board meeting on the next agenda.
Yeah, there's just relatively minor formatting issues we're going through and fixing right now. But otherwise it would, plan and ordinance were all unanimously approved.
Yes. New committee name and structure will also be coming. And we hope to meet again in May with the new committee appointments. Village attorney.
I think we've covered everything tonight, so I'm good.
Couple things, some appreciation to Chief Gary for securing about $4,700 in a federal grant for bulletproof vests. And we had or have 5 different service anniversaries in the month of March, and leading the way there is Kristen Kraus, our utility clerk at 17 years. Happy to take any questions from the tracker or anything you may have.
No, I appreciate you putting it together, Matt. It really helps to have that tracker list. But, you know, when things are like dead-ended or something, it'd be great to take them off. Like the Authentic Second Edition, I think that was on last month. Just minor cleanup stuff, but overall, I really appreciate.
My system is that once something's been on there and stagnant for a year, to take it off, because it reflects it kind of coincides to the monthly briefings that you guys get. So I can adjust on that, but sometimes there's other things that then someone will say, I just want to have a standard for when something comes off, so someone doesn't say, you know, why was this arbitrarily taken off, sort of thing.
Okay. My only thought is, a month after it's clearly not going anywhere, take it off. But, you know, again, it's better to have more information than not enough.
So,
I just was going through it and I saw it again. It's just a lot every.
I've had the same thoughts. Right. The tough thing there is on the development side. Just when you think something is never coming back, it does. So, but yeah.
All right. Communication and miscellaneous business. Approval of vouchers with the bills list.
Keep it super sweet. There's some questions that were
I just
sent
want to
off.
thank you for taking the time to go through my questions today. And so with that, I'd make a motion to approve the bills as presented.
Second.
Just with the bills listing, questions are encouraged. So that's obviously a way that we go through, make sure we're reviewing. Sometimes you might catch something that we can investigate further. So if there's ever an item that you're like, hey, operationalize, maybe let's have an additional conversation as a department how something is running, we welcome that feedback. It's just the board being that second set of eyes, helps us stay efficient. So thank you for all the questions that do come in.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain. Motion carries. Correspondence. We did have the flat camera email. So, Chief, will you please respond to that? Other correspondence?
Yes.
Okay. Upcoming community events.
Saturday is the corned beef and cabbage. I don't know if folks are planning on attending, if we should notice that, like publicly notice that. I know I will be there most of the day, so just throwing that out there.
I don't think we need a public notice for it. I think it's the presumption that we're not doing business at a.
So social or chance gatherings are not meetings under the public meetings law. If we know that there's going to be a quorum there, the best practice is to just notice that there's potential quorum, but no discussion or official action will take place.
Do you want to just notice it, Lisa? Okay.
It's a community event. The foundation's dance recital was yesterday, and it was fabulous. And all the dancers in Cottage Grove were fantastic and great. Our youth has so many opportunities in Cottage Grove, so I think that was a showcase of one of them.
And we did move our meeting for Strings Fest, and I know that there's band concerts tomorrow and upcoming choir concerts and all of the spring things that are happening before spring break, so it's a busy month in the schools as well. Future agenda items. I think we had a list from tonight, but we'll bring back the impact fees and Paula's discussion item on a task force, and the dinks and drinks.
Paul, I got, or sorry, not Paul, I got one item. Our new credit rating will be released on Friday. So we'll have Greg here to answer any questions about what our new rating is on our new debt. That comes out on Friday. I will email it out as soon as it becomes publicly available. But oftentimes we get questions after that's released. So that way we'll bring in Greg to, if he's available to answer questions. I did say that I would be ready to present our financial results for 2025 at the next meeting, given that the meeting starts at 7, and what the agenda items are possibly on. I can certainly kick it back to April 7th or continue to present as planned for the 18th. I'll just look for board direction on. It will be available. Maybe an email out when it's available and then a presentation on the 7th. I think good compromise.
All right.
Just one more thing, Cindy, just as a heads up to the village board, me and Josh will be talking about the Amazon offsite improvements at Public Works next week on Wednesday, and there'll be a follow-up presentation at village board following that.
All right, otherwise, we'll move on to 13. Discuss and consider entering into closed session to provide direction on negotiating parameters regarding property acquisition in TED 9.
So I think this was from the last meeting. There was, under the future agenda items, was to have a discussion like this. There's not any imminent offers, I guess, at this point in time, but if the board feels that it's required to go into closed session to talk about its negotiation strategy for future TID 9 acquisitions, that would be appropriate.
Is there interest from the board to go into closed session? Absolutely. Okay, so the Village of, I'll make a motion that the Village of Cottage Grove Village Board enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Is there a second? All right, roll call, please.
Benzo. Aye. Dahl.
Aye.
Severson. Aye. Stoa.
Yes.